So, Aquarius is supposed to be one of the most gorgeous and powerful zodiacs, right? But here she is, shaking in pure terror, crying that if he comes back, everyone is doomed. You see, the sheep saint, Yang Wei, was just brutally crushed by a dead man who absolutely should not exist. The craziest part? It was a total, one-sided beatdown. If a legendary zodiac saint got absolutely wrecked like a side character, then only another member of the 12 could have pulled this off. But who among them is playing assassin? Meanwhile, our main man finishes off Yang Wei, cheekily thanking him for the free power-up. He still has 10 more traitors left on his hit list. Now, these 12 zodiacs were praised as humanity's ultimate protectors, handpicked by the gods. But honestly, none of them actually wanted to wipe out the monsters. Why? Because killing the beasts meant losing their fame, cash, and luxury. They just wanted to play hero. But one man had a different plan. Lee Geon, the absolute strongest fighter, was built different, a battle-crazy badass who wanted to end this war forever. So, when the crew gathered for their hardest raid yet against the Crimson Eye, the cowards shook. Even the proud Aquarius collapsed right onto the floor in absolute, wet-your-pants terror. Meanwhile, Lee Geon charged the boss head-on, screaming for backup. But when he glanced behind him, surprise, the cowards were already running for their lives. Left with no distraction, he was forced to fight the beast entirely alone. Thus began a brutal, endless war. Lee Geon had no idea how many millions of monsters were waiting for him. Decades passed. While fighting for survival, he realized his so-called allies weren't coming back to help, not even to check for a body, so he just kept slaughtering, trapped in that hellhole for 20 painful years. Even after losing an arm, he pushed on until he crushed the very last monster. But as it died, the entire dungeon started collapsing. Buried alive, he realized this was it. What a joke of an ending. The cowards who stabbed him in the back were out there living like kings, while he was dying alone. And just like that, our hero perished. Or did he? Cut to the ruined city, where two rookies are currently running for their lives. One screams, "Run! I told you not to come this way." The other yells back, "How was I supposed to know? Today was marked safe. How could I guess a high-level calamity would spawn here?" A pack of ugly, horned mutts is hot on their heels. One kid literally bursts into tears. "We are dead. The fortune teller told me I'd meet an unbelievable monster today. I should have listened." Suddenly, a beast leaps right between them, splitting them up. One kid collapses, crying, while the other gets completely cornered by the pack of monsters. He sighs. Damn it. If only Lee Geon had survived the Devil's Tower, this trash wouldn't even be a threat. He looks toward that legendary tower, where our hero went in 20 years ago. But then, the massive gates suddenly begin to rumble open. A blinding light erupts from the inside, covering the entire city before exploding outward. The boys can only cover their eyes from the insane blast. As the smoke clears, the destruction is massive. The kids cough. What just happened? I don't know, Jimmy. But look, someone is walking out of the ruins. A human? They stare in complete disbelief. Out of the debris, a shadow emerges, practically radiating pure fury. Those useless cowards really thought they could trap me and walk away. Just wait. I am coming to personally end every single one of you. Buried under the debris, the boys stare in wonder at this mysterious guy. Suddenly, one of the ugly monsters lunges. But Lee Geon casually steps forward and absolutely crushes its head into paste. The boys gasp. Those are orange-class beasts, the kind that elite hunters actually struggle to fight. But to our hero, they are literal insects. He grabs the rest of them by their necks, grinning like a madman over the pile of monster corpses. Then, he glances over and completely vanishes. In a fraction of a second, he is standing right in front of the terrified boys. They fall backward, shrieking, "Please don't kill us. What did we do?" Lee Geon blinks. "Wait, you guys are human? Perfect. Now, the exit is this way, right?" The boys can finally breathe a sigh of relief. "Holy crap, we survived. Did you see that? He came right out of the tower." The other shakes his head. "Are you stupid? Nobody survives that place. It must have been some weird magical glitch." But as they keep arguing, a massive shadow looms right behind them. Both boys freeze instantly. A giant, bloodthirsty beast is staring straight down at their necks. Meanwhile, our hero just turns around, totally unbothered. The kid screams, "No way! That is the giant wolf boss. Run!" But Lee Geon just stares at the beast like it is a lost puppy. Suddenly, the monster charges a massive energy blast in its jaws. Boom! It fires a devastating beam straight at them. The terrified boys brace themselves as the attack obliterates the ground in its path. But after the dust settles, they realize they are completely unharmed. Did he just block that for us? Lee Geon grunts, steps forward, and casually slams his bare hand right onto the giant boss's head. It's a dirty little puppy. He pins it down and throws a single punch. The sheer shockwave completely vaporizes the wolf boss. The boys are left utterly speechless. Our hero lands with a smirk, the surrounding area entirely flattened. Boss? Obliterated. He stands in the ruins, staring at the traumatized kids while they thank the heavens they are still breathing. Now they think the nightmare is finally over. Then, he calls out, "Hey kids." They jump, saluting in panic. "Yes, sir. Go get me some food. I am absolutely starving." They just blankly stare, making him clear his throat. "Oh, and clothes, too. I need a fresh outfit." Next thing you know, they are at a local diner. While our hero absolutely demolishes plate after plate of food, the boys are staring at the rising bill, sweating bullets. This guy just ate enough to feed over 100 people. When they tearfully mention they are broke, he shrugs and says he actually held back. "Look at that massive tower of empty plates. Held back? Are you serious?" The kid cries. "What do you mean, held back?" Lee Geon replies, "Hey, didn't you promise to buy me whatever I wanted for saving your lives?" He then smiles. "So, how about another serving of?" They instantly cut him off, screaming that their wallets are totally empty. Then, one boy asks, "Wait, who are you? A high-level disciple? A Saints captain? What were you doing? At the Devil's Tower?" He blinks. "I just told you. I walked out of the tower and ran into you guys." They stare in shock. "Out of the tower?" But he just waves his hand. "Whatever. Forget that. I have a question. You guys look totally ordinary, so why do I feel magical energy inside you?" The kid explains they are disciples of the gods. Then they ask if he is also an awakened hunter, blessed with divine power. Hearing this, our hero scoffs. "Those useless gods? Why would I thank those trashy bastards?" But as he says this, he catches his reflection in a spoon and completely freezes. He gasps, "A mirror! Give me a mirror right now." Rushing over so fast he flips the table. He grabs a mirror and rips his shirt open, staring at his reflection in utter shock. "Wait, what? My entire body is healed?" He keeps staring in absolute disbelief. He vividly remembers being completely mutilated inside that tower. Scars, shredded flesh, even half his face blasted away. Wounds that should have been totally impossible to cure without sacrificing his own core power. But then, he looks down and gasps. His missing left arm is completely back. And what is this weird crest on his hand? It is a glowing, circular snake crest. Suddenly, the symbol flares up, sending a brutal wave of agony through his body. His veins bulge as he grips his arm. Suddenly, holographic system screens begin flashing before him. "You have experienced death. You unlocked an impossible achievement. All previous stats are now transferring to your new body, and your tower clears are converting into massive experience points. You have acquired a divine skill. All unique traits from your past life are fully restored and evolved. You can now wield the power of Ophiuchus." A massive snake sigil manifests behind him as the pain reaches a boiling point. Suddenly, his mind is pulled away, floating deep into his own spiritual sea. Surrounded by infinite cosmic stars, he finds himself face to face with a colossal serpent. Its massive eyes stare down at him. Slowly, Lee Geon reaches out his hand. The moment they touch, a blinding light erupts, pulling him right back to reality inside the busy diner. "Wait, what just happened?" one of the boys asks, rushing over to check on him. Just for context, they call our protagonist Ryong here, but his real name is actually Geon. And right now, he is still incredibly shaken. Staring blankly, Geon asks, "Wait, you guys seriously didn't see that massive snake just now?" The boys just exchange confused looks. "Snake? What snake? All we saw was you stand up, start randomly taking off your clothes, and stare at yourself in the mirror like a total weirdo. Then you clenched your fist and started screaming like a lunatic. So, nobody else can see the system." He stares at his hand, realizing the truth. Meanwhile, the boys just keep staring, convinced this guy gets weirder by the second. Suddenly, Geon feels that intense energy surging through him once more, and yet another glowing system window pops up right in front of him. A massive wave of screens appears. Geon, the 13th seat of the gods, owner of the seat of Ophiuchus. Awakened title, the man who crushes all creation. More windows show up, breaking down his brand new overpowered abilities. One screen says he gained God-tier super regeneration. Any damage to his body will immediately be restored, but there is a catch. A temporary penalty reduces his stats by 50% for the next 10 hours. So, his sudden glow-up came from that broken skill. He has never heard of any other saint possessing an ability like this. Even stranger, he cannot feel any divine presence watching over him. Still, his body is fully healed, which is a pretty sweet deal. But now, the real question is what comes next. His mind flashes back to those pathetic cowards who betrayed him, leaving him to die against the boss. Now, he only has one goal. He wants absolute revenge on every single saint who stabbed him in the back. Just plotting what he is going to do to those snakes gets him incredibly hyped, giving him a terrifying smile that completely scares the boys. Meanwhile, we cut to the smoking ruins of the massive explosion. Onlookers snap photos while medics scramble. Someone whispers in utter shock, "Is it really true? Did the unbreakable Devil Tower actually just collapse?" Another person replies, "Yeah, the entire world is about to lose its mind. That tower was literally the ultimate symbol of humanity." People begin whispering, wondering if this was the work of some extreme cult followers, or maybe rival disciples settling a deadly grudge. Someone points toward the massive dead monsters nearby. Even elite, high-ranking saints would struggle against beasts of that caliber. So, who could have pulled this off? Who wiped them out and shattered the tower? Suddenly, someone asks, "Wait, do you think Geon actually survived and came back?" Nobody has an answer, but a heavy, uneasy feeling hangs over the entire crowd. Next, we find ourselves at a massive, chaotic press conference. Camera flashes light up the room as eager reporters shout over one another, demanding to know if there is any chance that Geon is still alive. Sitting at the center of the chaos is a heavy-set man, staying completely silent while scanning the crowd. This is Yang Wei, the saint of the Aries constellation, and one of the cowards who abandoned our boy. He coldly mutters, "No comment," before swiftly getting up to leave. The reporters go wild, shouting for answers, but you and I both know that reaction is incredibly suspicious. Safely inside his car, Yang Wei completely loses his mind, throwing a massive tantrum and smashing everything. He screams, cursing Geon's name over and over. Seriously, how many times has he heard that name today? A dark thought creeps in. Could Geon actually be alive? He flashes back to Geon's battered, bloody body from 20 years ago. There is no way anyone could survive inside that demonic tower for 2 decades. It is mathematically impossible. The place was packed with thousands of high-ranking demonic beasts. It was already a literal miracle that the rest of them managed to escape after defeating the legendary Scarlet Eyes boss. So how could one guy survive alone? Especially since Geon's body was already ruined by the brutal backlash of his own overwhelming powers. Plus, unlike the rest of those betrayers, Geon had zero divine protection. But what if the impossible actually happened? He tries to shake the terrifying thought, knowing that if Geon has indeed returned, his comfortable life of luxury is completely over. Meanwhile, we cut back to our protagonist. Geon is casually checking an old phone, muttering that he knows exactly who to hunt down and crush first. After that, we transition to an airport where a luxury private jet has just finished landing. A formal greeting awaits him. "Welcome, sir. It is a true honor to meet one of the 12 divine constellations, Mr. Hugo Otur." Yes, it is the stylish blonde guy who used to share fried chicken with Geon. He is looking absolutely sharp in his high-end suit. We are reminded that this handsome fellow is the Sagittarius saint, Hugo Otur. He immediately asks, "Where is the Prime Minister?" And they reply he is waiting. "Your luxury ride is waiting right over there, sir." Hugo nods. "Good. Let's move." Nearby onlookers whisper in awe about how majestic and divine he looks. To them, this is what a true godlike hero looks like. Safely inside the car, Hugo stares out the window, lost in deep thought. His phone starts buzzing frantically. It is just more annoying reporters. He sighs, unable to believe people actually think Geon could still be alive. But then, an unknown number flashes on the screen. It has been over 20 long years since that day. He stares at his phone, turning it over in his hand while a chilling memory of a grim warning flashes. He remembers Geon, bloodied and bruised, flashing a cheeky grin and saying, "Why do you have so little faith in me?" Back during the raid, Hugo actually left the tower to fight the monsters outside at Geon's request. Hugo prayed his terrible premonitions were wrong, and that his best friend would make it out alive. But instead, the other saints emerged carrying only a monster head, claiming Geon did not make it. The corrupt group of saints had abandoned Geon inside, using the boss monster's defeat to steal all the glory. Because of that lie, the 12 saints, including Hugo, were hailed as legendary saviors of humanity. Even while recovering in the hospital, Hugo refused to accept that Geon was gone, begging officials to launch a massive rescue mission. But a greedy, selfish bastard quickly shut down his desperate pleas. "Hugo, face reality. It is too late." It was none other than the Cancer Saint, who coldly reminded him of the countless disasters pouring from that tower. He scoffed, calling Hugo a fool for believing Geon could survive. He mockingly challenged Hugo to go search the tower himself if he cared so much. But doing that meant breaking the alliance. Hugo was left standing there, completely consumed by overwhelming frustration and guilt. Back in the present, Hugo sighs, telling himself that no matter how ridiculously strong Geon was, surviving 20 years in that hellhole is impossible. After all this time, it is simply too late. Suddenly, his assistant interrupts his thoughts, announcing an urgent incoming call from the Prime Minister. Hugo answers, and the politician immediately asks if he is listening, bringing up the breaking news of the tower. Hugo just brushes it off as old gossip. He frankly tells the Prime Minister that if this is another useless request to search for Geon, his answer is a flat no. To Hugo, his friend died 20 years ago. He figures whatever is happening over there is just the work of some fanatic cultists. And if the government is just using Geon's name to win cheap political votes, the Prime Minister suddenly cuts him off. No, Hugo, you do not understand. The Prime Minister sounds panicked. He explains that South Korea just received an emergency alert because, just moments ago, a call was placed to a very specific, secret line. It is the private, direct hotline reserved only for Geon. Hugo instantly freezes, his eyes widening. He screams in absolute panic, violently grabbing the poor driver. Stop the car! Stop the car right now! The driver slams on the brakes. Hugo shivers as a wild realization hits him. He checks his phone and sees 30 missed calls. You and I can probably guess who they are from. The line connects, and a familiar, cocky voice rings out. Hey, Tyson. I am going to find you, and I am going to kill you. The threat hits Hugo like an absolute truck. But then, a massive, tearful smile breaks across his face. That voice, that incredibly rude attitude, it is actually him. Overjoyed, he screams at the driver to pull a sharp U-turn and speed back to the airport. The driver tries to mention his schedule, but Hugo snaps. I said get to the airport right now. Meanwhile, back at the small shop, Geon chuckles to himself, thinking his old buddy Tyson has grown up but still cannot pick up a phone on time. The boy asks who he was calling, and Geon casually shrugs it off as nobody important. He turns his attention back to the smartphone, thoroughly fascinated. Since he entered the tower in 2005, 20 years have passed. The kid is totally shocked that this handsome caveman has never used a phone before. He excitedly explains that you can surf the web, read news, and watch videos. Hearing that, Geon's eyes instantly light up. He starts searching for news about himself, and yep, he is actually the top trending topic. As articles flood the screen, our main character quietly scrolls through them while the kid watches in total awe. Then, Geon spots the comments. Half the internet is screaming that it is impossible for him to be back, while the other half insists he is strong enough to conquer the entire world. One hater calls him pure trash, comparing him to those 12 Saints, which immediately sparks a massive flame war. Honestly, the entire comment section descends into absolute, unhinged chaos. This makes our main character so mad he nearly crushes the phone, leaving the poor kid begging for mercy. He is absolutely furious that those frauds are getting credit for defeating Scarlet Eyes. Back then, those cowards were shaking in their boots, and now they are blaming him for everything. He tries to shrug it off, but a sudden memory stops him dead in his tracks. Digging deeper, he finds a report from right after his supposed death. Originally, the main character had willed all his wealth to be donated directly to orphanages and school foundations. Wondering if his wishes were actually carried out, he searches further. But the news claims the 12 Saints deeply mourned his loss, praising his ultimate sacrifice to the high heavens. It even says he left all his powerful relics to the 12 Saints so they could carry on his legacy. Every single one of them accepted, except Hugo, the Sagittarius Saint. So basically, those thieves stole absolutely everything. Our protagonist completely snaps, pulverizes the kid's phone, and vows to obliterate every single one of them, along with their useless gods. While the kid weeps on the floor over his wrecked device, the main character just casually thanks it for its service. Talk about cold. Now, John needs a plan to make his comeback. After all, his face looks completely different from 20 years ago. If he just starts claiming who he is, everyone will think he belongs in a psych ward. Silence is his best weapon for now, at least until he can personally torment every last saint. Just then, a system alert pops up with a warning, telling him someone is watching. Suddenly, a creepy red mist begins to form. Geon instantly recognizes this dark energy. He stands up to leave, and when the kid asks where he is heading, he casually replies he is just going out to get some fresh air. Stepping outside, he is greeted by fiery, goat-like beasts and flying monsters. He knows exactly what they are. Avatars. The system confirms these annoying pests are minions from the Ares sanctuary. They are casting a barrier to weaken other divine influences and demand a tribute. Geon just scoffs. These freeloaders serve the gods, yet regular humans are the ones forced to pay the price. He cracks his knuckles, ready to throw down. But then, some random bypassers start loudly complaining nearby. One guy groans, saying he is completely sick of hearing the name Geon. Talk about talking trash directly in front of the man himself. The woman beside him chimes in, whining about how the media will not shut up about him, and she is totally over it. Geon just stares at them, amused. Why is everyone so obsessed with a ghost from the past? That is when he spots a peculiar badge pinned to the man's shirt. The kids recognize it instantly. These jerks are from the powerful Gemini sanctuary. One boy frantically whispers for Geon to step back, begging him not to pick a fight with them. But our hero keeps staring, prompting the guy to bark. What are you looking at? He tells him to beat it, sending the kids into a full-blown panic. The thug takes a slow drag. He blows a cloud of smoke straight into Geon's face, mocking him and daring him to do something about it. Before things escalate, the woman tries to drag him away, laughing. She tells him they should leave before the poor guy wets himself. The jerk even pats Geon on the head like a dog, throwing out petty insults while his girlfriend chuckles. He sneers, wondering aloud why anyone ever liked such a weak saint, questioning if he was ever even real. Oh, big mistake. That officially pushes our protagonist past his limit. One of the kids nervously warns him that these are high-ranking Gemini disciples. Geon completely ignores the warning, calling them absolute cowards right to their faces. The guy turns back, pissed. Geon fires back with an even nastier insult. The thug steps up, demanding he say that again, stunned that some mannerless nobody has the guts to speak to him like that. Geon does not even bother responding. He just delivers a casual flick to the man's forehead. That single tap sends him flying back, causing a massive explosion upon impact. Geon just smiles at the beautiful view. Terrified, the woman realizes she is next. He calls her out, knowing she was trying to sneak attack him from behind. She had already conjured fire magic in her hand, but it was a totally useless move. With another simple flick, Geon sends her crashing through a brick wall like a rag doll. As she drops, the kids are left utterly speechless. They ask how he can use overpowered skills in public. Geon just chuckles and tells them they are dead wrong. If he had actually used a skill, those two would be dust. He basically took down elite disciples with his bare hands. Crouching down, he rips a strange necklace off the man. He knew something felt off. This thing is not a proper divine artifact. So why do these lowlifes have one? Only saints are supposed to hold these legendary items. Realizing Geon is completely clueless, the kid explains. Decades ago, humanity almost went extinct due to horrific calamities. We only survived thanks to gods and their chosen saints. But since 12 people could not protect the entire globe, the saints gathered disciples and built massive sanctuaries. Anyone who received power from them became known as a disciple. We see a brief demonstration of this power on screen. Naturally, their ranks match their strength. At the very top are the double S-rank saints chosen by the gods. Directly below them are the 10-star candidates. Then come the S-rank captains who lead the charges, followed by the standard A-rank and B-rank disciples. It is a strict hierarchy. The gods actually grow more powerful based on their followers' faith. That is why these massive cathedrals host huge public events and contests to recruit more believers to their side. The chosen followers even receive special gifts directly from their gods. Listening to this, Geon looks at the relics, realizing how much changed during his 20-year absence. Suddenly, the kid yells for him to watch out. Turning around, he sees those annoying goat monsters return. Meanwhile, a system alert flashes before his eyes with a warning. Apparently, the gods of greed and Aries are loving the show. They want blood, promising him a massive reward if he slaughters both targets on the spot, causing the kid to panic. He warns Geon that he has drawn the attention of the celestial houses. Defying them is basically suicide, since they are the direct shadows of the gods. The kid begs him to obey. Geon just grins, completely unfazed. He chuckles, saying he finally understands why these idiots are here. They are just trying to feed their greedy, filthy master. Honestly, some things never change. With a smirk, Geon begins channeling his immense power. He stomps his foot, releasing a massive blue shockwave that blasts right through the floating goat creatures. The kids shield their eyes from the blinding light. In an instant, the sinister red smoke is completely vaporized. Terrified by his might, the Ares minions flee, and the barrier shatters. This guy is definitely not human. Pointing at the knocked-out thug, Geon asks if he was really a Gemini disciple. The kid nods, confirming they belong to the country's top sanctuary, an elite organization packed with wealthy, influential figures. Geon immediately grins, cutting straight to what matters. So, they must be absolutely loaded, right? The boy just stares, completely lost. All right, you and I are about to see our greedy hero do what he does best. Finding expensive clothes on his victim, he immediately declares it is looting time, and honestly, stealing their gear is his favorite part. The kids start pointing out where they live. One shows off his apartment on the second floor, while the other says his place is just down the next block. They both thank Geon for saving them. But then, they just stand there waiting. Geon yawns and asks if they are ever going inside, because he is exhausted and definitely not in the mood for games. Next thing we know, they are inside. Once inside, Geon strips off his shirt and starts chopping away at his messy hair. He steps back, proud, declaring his handsome style is finally back. Jimin gives him an impressed thumbs up, asking if he really did that himself. Our main character gets slightly embarrassed. He explains that, back in the day, his power's crazy side effects made every single strand of hair precious. Seriously, a strong breeze could have left him completely bald. That memory takes him back to those miserable days when he was half bald and completely broken. Now, he can barely believe his luck. Even his hair is perfectly normal again. But then, he suddenly freezes. Wait a second. Why on earth is there a calamity inside this apartment? He casually smacks the tiny bug, turning it to dust. The kid absolutely loses it, because normally, even pro hunters cannot kill these pests bare-handed. But look, a whole swarm is heading their way. Geon wonders what these things are sensing. Jimin nervously asks if he is radiating some weird aura that attracts monsters, but our hero instantly shuts down that silly idea. If pests are gathering, it means something in the room is baiting them. Geon points out the evil relics scattered around. The boy argues back, insisting they are blessed items gifted directly from a prestigious saint. Our main character responds by instantly smashing one right in front of him. The poor kid collapses in absolute despair, while Geon calls the item completely repulsive. He starts pointing out the junk one by one. That mask is a relic used to spy on its owner, the music box harvests personal data, and the clock literally summons monsters. The kid is devastated, while Geon gets incredibly furious at those corrupt saints. Those thieves did not just steal his money. They are peddling cursed junk and robbing people of their privacy. It makes him furious. He tells the utterly terrified kid to throw everything in the garbage. But right outside, a newly arrived guest hears all this screaming. Inside, Geon stands awkwardly while the weeping kid clings to his leg. Suddenly, the newcomer steps in, staring at this bizarre scene with total confusion. He demands to know who Geon is, but the panicked kid accidentally blabs the name Sungjae. That immediately triggers the redhead. He snaps that he is the actual homeowner, you idiot, and begins releasing his magical pressure. Meanwhile, we cut to the airy sanctuary at Yangwei's luxurious residence. He is absolutely shell-shocked to hear that the divine Korean avatars have suddenly vanished, leaving their entire local branch in complete chaos. Yang refuses to believe it. Avatars are literal servants of the gods. Only a legendary, high-tier awakener could possibly defeat them. Terrified, he orders his assistants to contact the other saints to see who is responsible. His men obey, but mention they still cannot get in touch with Hugo's sanctuary. Yang arrogantly brushes it off, assuming Hugo simply went to the United Kingdom to act like a mercenary for hire once again. But then his scouts reveal that the moment Hugo arrived in the United Kingdom, he abruptly changed course. When a startled Yang demands to know where, they answer Korea. Hearing this, his anxiety instantly spikes. Hugo and Geon were practically brothers. Yang begins to sweat, wondering if the wild rumors of our hero's survival are actually true. If so, does that old friend remember him from the past? Is he back? He refuses to accept this nightmare and throws a massive chandelier at an innocent servant. Shouting for answers, he demands every single detail. His men report that near an avatar's disappearance, a Gemini disciple was found knocked out. Witnesses claim the trash disciple picked a fight with an incredibly handsome guy. A handsome guy? Yang instantly sighs in relief, figuring it cannot be Geon. The hero he remembered had a completely destroyed face. Still, everything is falling apart around him lately. It is still possible that the monster has returned to life. After all, the Korean avatars are vanishing into thin air, and nobody knows why. To make matters worse, his team just failed to defeat the Spider Queen. If this downward spiral continues, his high-ranking position is gone. He barks orders to prep his private jet, planning to handle this himself. He absolutely needs to see the situation with his own eyes, heading out immediately with his squad. Meanwhile, we cut back to a Gemini-affiliated hospital in Korea, where that beaten thug is still totally knocked out. A furious old elder demands to know which monster dared to trash his beloved grandson. As the thug lies whimpering, an ally tells him to relax. Gemini Temple just sent an absolute powerhouse to deal with this. So, while we watch out for this S-class knight, let us head back to the apartment. The redhead asks if they really met this mysterious hunter in the tower, and if he truly destroyed monsters bare-handed. The shivering kid just nods along in sheer terror. Then comes the next question. Did he really knock out an A-class ranker? The boy confirms it, causing the homeowner to completely lose his mind. None of this adds up, especially why this stranger smashed every expensive relic. Geon calmly replies that they were all cheap counterfeits. Ready to explode, The redhead demands to know which temple he belongs to, but our hero just gives him a cocky smirk, saying he has no need for a temple. At this point, the kid is seconds from absolutely snapping, demanding to know which god he serves. Geon scoffs, declaring he serves none of those idiot gods, only himself. The interrogation continues. What class is he? He casually replies he is probably just a worker. Then comes the final question. His name. He proudly answers that his name is Lee Geon. The moment Sungjae hears that, his magical power starts swirling furiously. Jimin desperately tries to hold him back, but the hot-headed fan is completely done listening. This thief broke in, smashed his holy relics, and now dares to impersonate his ultimate idol, Lee Geon. A massive freezing aura erupts behind him as he roars, demanding how he dares to mimic a legend. Jimin panics, screaming at him not to destroy their home. Meanwhile, a system notification pops up in front of Geon, warning him that the Gemini Temple's divine magic is surging. Frankly, our hero looks excited. This is the perfect chance to analyze his opponent. Another screen appears, prompting him to activate a skill. It instantly locks onto Cheon Sungjae, an A-class elite from the House of Gemini. His skills include an S-rank ice stake and an A-rank ice capsule. His traits are genius, violent, stubborn, and an obsessive fan. That genius trait apparently gives a massive boost to his learning stats. Geon realizes the kid is summoning high-rank entities at a very young age, so that genius trait definitely is not for show. Meanwhile, Sungjae keeps channeling his giant construct, causing Jimin to absolutely panic. He screams for Geon to run, warning that this redhead is an A-class candidate from the Gemini Temple. Plus, he's a certified Lee Geon fanatic who will destroy anything in his path. But while the redhead is still screaming and charging up, our hero suddenly vanishes, appearing right behind him. He calmly warns the kid not to play with fire, prepping a single finger. Before the kid can even react, Geon flicks him right in the forehead, sending him flying across the room. A second later, Jimin starts crying, panicking that this fight is going to trash the building. But the fight is already over. The redhead collapses onto the floor, completely knocked out cold. Jimin nervously asks if his friend is dead, but Geon casually says he just got his brain rattled. That answer does absolutely nothing to calm Jimin's nerves. We see a massive, comical bump swelling on Sungjae's forehead. Geon shrugs, announces he is going to bed, and says the kid will wake up eventually. Meanwhile, Jimin keeps frantically shaking the unconscious teen, begging him to open his eyes. He tries to get any signs of life, but the poor redhead is just lying there, foaming at the mouth. Shaking his head, Geon walks into his bedroom. There, he finds a massive, creepy collection of action figures and statues of himself. He stares blankly, demanding to know what this absolute madness is supposed to be. Jimin explains that Sungjae is actually a crazy devotee of the legend, Lee Geon. Right on cue, the redhead wakes up, screaming at him to step away from his precious, priceless collection of holy figures. Our hero casually pops the head off his own figure, admitting this creeps him out. As you and I can see, he suggests decapitating the rest too, leaving the poor fan frozen in absolute paralyzed horror. This poor redhead is screaming, begging him to stop, but our main character just keeps smashing his precious figures. He insists he is not some lunatic. He is literally Lee Geon. The devastated collector just bursts into tears. Meanwhile, at a nearby cafe, the news reports that 2 Gemini affiliates were brutally ambushed yesterday by some mystery attacker. To make it worse, the thief swiped all their gear. Hugo, who is watching the broadcast, instantly knows it is gone. He grumbles, wondering what on earth that idiot is doing now. What a welcome back to Korea. But as Hugo goes to order, he looks up at the waitress. Suddenly, his face turns dead cold, and the atmosphere freezes. He tells Yang to stop the act and get lost. The waitress smirks, revealing a chubby bad guy is actually possessing her body because he could not reach Hugo otherwise. He figures Hugo must care deeply about Lee Geon to rush back so fast. So, he demands answers about our main character. But Hugo just snaps right back, saying he absolutely despises body snatchers. Hugo just flicks her forehead. Boom, the lady instantly snaps out of it, totally confused about why she is standing there. He curses Yang Wei's annoying tricks, knowing he has to find Geon before anyone else does. Meanwhile, at a local supermarket, the redhead and his friend are out shopping. The younger kid suggests that maybe, just maybe, that guy really is the legendary hero, but the redhead laughs it off. No way is that wild delinquent their savior, yet the kid insists he watched him walk right out of the Devil Tower with insane power. Still, the redhead shuts him down, claiming his own dad confirmed it is impossible. Before the kid can even argue back, the redhead drags him to the checkout counter. But right then, a piercing scream echoes from the back of the store. A thief! Suddenly, a guy blasts right past them like a rocket, knocking down shelves and sending items flying everywhere. He is moving incredibly fast. The redhead recognizes that insane speed. It is a Scorpio affiliate using his powers to snatch every single wallet and phone in the entire grocery store. He zips around like a total blur, robbing everyone blind. He smugly thinks nobody can catch him at this speed, not even other high-level hunters in the area. Just as he is about to escape with his loot, bam! A sudden fist slams directly into his ribs. It is Gon, looking completely bored, saying he caught him. The thief is stunned, and the kid gasps, wondering why Gon is here. Our main character casually replies that he simply forgot to ask them to buy some chicken. As the thief rolls on the floor in agony, a bystander admits catching a Scorpio affiliate is wild, but sensing Gon's basic energy, they assume he is just ordinary. They patronizingly warn him to call the police next time. But before that arrogant guy can finish his sentence, the ground begins to shake violently. The entire market starts trembling. The thief panics, thinking it is an earthquake, but quickly realizes this chaos is his perfect golden ticket to slip away. He runs, laughing that the crazy guy missed his chance to finish him, but his luck instantly runs out as the floor splits open, revealing a terrifying nightmare beneath. A massive, horrifying centipede crawls out. It is a calamity. He cannot believe one spawned in a safe green zone and curses his terrible luck. He still tries to outrun it, confident his God-given speed will save him, but while he is smugly smiling, the beast lunges forward with a massive, gaping mouth. We all know how this ends. Gulp. Now we see the beast in all its horror. It is the exact monster the villain failed to secure. It eyes everyone like easy snacks, spreading pure terror. The predator locks its deadly gaze on the crowd. Emergency sirens blare, announcing that this is not a drill and a disaster is active inside the building. With terrified shoppers trapped, an evacuation order is issued. Because this queen spider has appeared, the threat level has officially escalated to red. Suddenly, the beast unleashes a massive wave of creepy bugs and flies. Amidst the stampede, a crying child is left behind, completely defenseless as a monster charges. But in a flash of green light, Gon steps in, absolutely obliterating the beast with one single, massive punch. He casually asks the shocked kid if he is doing okay. The boy takes one look at Gon's face, freaks out, and runs away screaming without saying thank you. Our hero is left standing there, completely dumbfounded. Oh well, at least the kid is safe. Still, he wonders why this market has more monsters than groceries. He decides it is the perfect time for a quick warm-up. He begins to slowly draw his weapon. Meanwhile, inside a speeding luxury car, the corrupt fat boss gets an urgent report about a massive calamity outbreak at the market. When he hears it is the queen spider, he loses his mind. They barely managed to seal that thing after their last failed raid, and now it has escaped. He knows he cannot handle a red-class disaster alone. Now, let us break down the 6 danger levels humanity created to survive these terrifying outbreaks. Blue is low threat, green is safe, yellow is alert, and orange is high danger. Red means complete monster control, while black means absolute extinction. With the queen spider loose, that market is officially a red zone. When the driver asks what to do, the boss coldly tells him to bury the whole place. The driver is horrified, but Yangwei explains that if people find out they hid their failed raid, they are finished. To protect their reputation, they must bury the truth. He orders them to report everyone dead and demolish the building. Back inside the chaos, a bald hunter curses the bugs and unleashes a massive ice spell. He freezes the swarming beasts solid, shouting that they should never underestimate an S-rank hunter. It seems this guy is the assassin sent to hunt Gon, but the monsters instantly shatter his ice and lunged forward. The bald hunter is shocked they broke his magic so easily, but suddenly, Gon steps right in front of him. He is casually holding a stack of grocery cans, telling the bald guy to get out of his way. Staring at the beasts, Gon jokes that they must be absolutely starving. He tosses a can into the air, catches it with blinding speed, and grins. He tells them to eat this, and begins hurling grocery cans like deadly high-speed missiles. Every single throw hits with devastating force. Monsters shriek as one gets sliced clean in half, and our main character tears through the rest like wet paper. He laughs, telling this trash to know their place as he clears the aisles. The Gemini hunters can only watch in absolute shock at his terrifying speed. Just then, a system screen pops up. He defeated the calamities, gaining Zodiac experience and rare production materials. Gon stares, confused by what this system wants. A small glowing crystal appears in his hand. The system explains he can now craft custom skills and relics, and his production skills have completely evolved. Gon decides to test that feature later. Even with his stats cut to 50% due to recovery penalties, this warm-up feels great. Let us see what he does next, unleashing even more insane power. Meanwhile, cue the bald guy staring in absolute shock. He cannot believe this dude just wiped out S-rank calamities like they were minor inconveniences. Then, our main character turns to Sunj. Huh? When did you steal that? He flashes a stolen dagger, making the kid completely freeze up. Who is this guy? But our hero remains totally chill, while the bald guy suddenly pipes up. Hey, I knew you looked shady. You are the one who trashed our affiliates. This actually pauses our hero, remembering those two idiots he wrecked earlier. But instead, our main character just tells him to shut up and slaps him silly. The bald guy drops to the floor, crying about how he found out, and claiming he knows too much. How could I not know, you dummy? You literally wore their clothes and badges. Turns out, our hero was casually parading around in Yang's outfit this entire time. And talk about zero stealth, since that S-rank badge is exclusive to Gemini. Sunjae stares at it while the bald guy keeps barking, claiming that shiny relic is the only reason our hero is so ridiculously overpowered. Our guy just looks down. Gross, why is this trash on me? He immediately crushes it, making the bald dude go pale. You psycho. Relax, it is worthless decoration. You all got scammed. By the witch! The bald guy gasps, screaming blasphemy in utter horror. He shakes his head, unable to believe this lunatic and his bar buddy are still acting like punks after 20 years. But mid-talk, a massive monster crashes the party. Our hero locks in as Sunjae and the redhead point in absolute terror. Yep, it is the queen spider, and she is going wild. Destruction spreads as people scream in pure panic, and the bald guy whimpers her name. But our main man just flexes his aura and instantly launches himself straight at the beast. Hey Queenie, got a gift for you. He delivers a brutal punch, sending the giant spider flying backward. Everyone just stands there, jaws on the floor, questioning reality. What was that? He just boxed a giant boss spider without even touching a relic. Suddenly, a telepathic voice echoes through the ruined market. The bald guy perks up, instantly recognizing the speaker. Wait, it is Bishop Choi. The bald guy, Sun Ho, answers immediately. Choi orders them to evacuate right now, warning that the Aries constellation is about to level the entire building. Outside, they are already prepping to bring the roof down. Choi adds that Yang Wei himself is on the way, and they cannot stop him. Plus, that queen spider inside is an absolute beast that even Yang Wei could not defeat. They want to bury the evidence of their massive failure. So, Sun Ho, use that borrowed teleportation skill of yours and grab Sunjae to escape immediately. Sun Ho hesitates, looking around at all the injured people trapped under the rubble. The absolute chaos makes it impossible to just walk away. Meanwhile, our hero is still trading blows with the beast. As Sun Ho hesitates, Choi demands to know what is taking so long. Sun Ho lies, saying everything is perfectly fine, but the red-haired kid snaps, yelling about the absolute mess around them. He accuses them of leaving everyone to get buried alive. That gets to Sun Ho, who looks deeply conflicted. He admits he knows, but if the public finds out a queen spider appeared in a major city, their reputation is ruined. He keeps preaching before anyone can even argue back. The citizens will blame the sanctuary, weakening their precious faith and the power of the gods. Humanity must stay devoted for divine protection. Classic cult logic, you and I know it. He reveals they only have 2 teleports left. Sunj, you are coming with me. I have strict orders. But Sunj flat out refuses to leave his friends and the trapped citizens. You idiot, do not make me look bad. I am not dying here because of your stubbornness. He starts summoning his ice powers again, preparing to make a very cold move. I must follow orders, so I will just eliminate the deadweight myself. Hearing this threat, the red-haired boy immediately draws his weapon, calling him absolute trash. You think you can take me? We are not on the same level. Throw away your useless conscience and be smart. But before he can finish his villain speech, boom! A giant centipede smashes him, sending him sliding face first across the dirt. Our hero looks over, totally casual. What? You guys are still here? It is dangerous. Scram already. The kid calls him Hyung, pleading for help. The redhead quickly explains that the exit is completely blocked by monsters. Their only choice is to teleport or defeat every single calamity. But that massive queen spider is still staring them down, surrounded by wounded survivors. Meanwhile, outside, those suits are gathering purple energy, preparing to seal off the entire zone. Our hero clicks his tongue, complaining about the massive headache. But the bruised bald guy crawls back up, screaming in rage because this newcomer dared to humiliate him. Our hero cuts him off, assuming he had already run away like a coward. The bald guy yells to shut up, declaring he is saving himself and leaving everyone behind. As he activates the teleport, a sticky web snatches his back. The queen spider yanks him straight into her massive jaws. Munch! All that is left is his phone. Everyone stares in absolute horror. Our hero casually turns to the kids, telling them to handle the wounded and escape while he takes care of this overgrown bug. He promises to wrap this up quickly, urging them to move. Meanwhile, outside, the barrier continues to rise as Yang arrives, demanding an immediate status report on the situation. Yang is totally unimpressed by their progress. But suddenly, the barricade starts cracking, failing to hold whatever is inside. A brilliant green light begins to leak out of the building. Boom! The energy explodes, shattering the barricade and blasting the guards backward. A massive, glowing serpent crest manifests over the area. What is that? A giant snake? Terrified people start pouring out. They scream for help, crying that the calamity is still active and survivors are trapped. The suits try to contain the crowd, but people shout that some crazy guy is literally wrestling spiders. Yang watches in stunned silence. Catching spiders? That is impossible, even for me. So who is in there? He begins channeling his fiery red aura, making the guards panic. They warn him about the danger, but he does not care. Ordering them to stay alert, he leaps across the rooftops, crashing right into the ruined supermarket to see the chaos. He gasps, "How did anyone take this beast down? Who did this?" Looking at the destruction, he realizes someone actually hunted the queen spider. This is turning into a massive headache, but feeling a familiar energy signature, he bolts forward, looks down, and completely freezes. No way. Why is that bastard here? Down in the massive crowd, he spots Hugo. He wonders if Hugo is the mastermind behind this crazy raid. It makes perfect sense, until a cheeky voice suddenly whispers right behind him. "Hey, did you miss me, buddy?" Yang freezes solid. It is Lee Geon, casually teasing him. "What is with that face, fatty? You look like you just swallowed a bug." The terrified general can only stammer in shock. You are actually alive." Cut to the aftermath. Alarms blaring as heroic firefighters guide survivors away from the crumbling supermarket, shouting for the injured to step forward for help. Meanwhile, our young heroes realize that crazy guy really is the legendary Lee Geon. He looks different, but those moves? Undeniable. Suddenly, a familiar voice calls out, asking what they are doing. It is the Sagittarius Saint himself. The kids freeze in shock, while the red-haired boy just looks completely baffled, asking when he even got back. Hugo snaps, demanding some respect. "Wait, father?" "Yes, this angry redhead is actually Hugo's son. What a wild family reunion." The legendary archer saint looks them over, relieved to see they are not seriously hurt. A quick medical patch-up is fine, but what really matters is the supermarket. The calamity was completely obliterated in there, so who did it? The redhead ignores him entirely. Completely ignored and fuming, he glares, wondering who Hugo is tracking now. Suddenly, his subordinate mentions that Gun should be fine. The second Hugo hears that name, he snaps and sprints over. "Did you say Gun? Where is he? How do you know him?" The guy panics. "Are you talking about the saint?" "Yes, he is inside that supermarket. He is the one who defeated the queen spider. He said his name was Lee Geon. Tell me everything." But right then, a massive explosion rips through the supermarket. Hugo whips around, staring at the blast in shock. And then, the scene cuts. We find the big guy beaten to a pulp and totally stunned. He gasps, "You bastard." But our main character just smirks. So dramatic. "We have known each other for 20 years, man. Who even are you?" Youngwei snaps. "You look like Lee Geon, but his face did not have those scars, and your voice is completely different. Plus, he could never look this young today. How dare you pretend to be Lee Geon? You actually had me fooled for a second." The fat guy keeps screaming, absolutely furious. "You ready for what comes next?" Meanwhile, the main character just stares. "What are you even blabbering about, you moron?" Then, boom! He steps forward and drives a massive fist straight into Yongwei's chest, launching him through the air. Did you think this was a joke? He does not stop there. He bounces the guy around the room like a ping-pong ball until he hits the floor. Slipping a hand in his pocket, Lee Geon strolls over completely unbothered. "Do you guys seriously need a beating before you will listen? Did you think life would get easier after betraying me? You stole my relics and even faked my final words." Yang Wei can only stare. "I was already planning on throwing you into orbit. But let us start with a basic lesson." Yang Wei is trembling in fear as our main character casually lays out his entire revenge plan. "I am going to destroy your home, your sanctuary, your stolen relics, and every single one of those trash saints. I will tear it all down." Yang Wei panics, realizing this guy is not bluffing. He could not even track his attacks earlier. Is this monster really Lee Geon? Did he actually survive the tower? No. Impossible. "If you are really him," Yang Wei mutters. "Prove it to me." A dark purple aura flares up around Yang Wei. A massive symbol spreads across the floor as a colossal figure rises behind him. The system announces that the Ares god has finally revealed itself. "Though only a fraction of your god showed up, huh?" Still, Yang Wei acts incredibly smug. He unleashes a storm of divine chains to bind Lee Geon, and once they wrap tight, he sneers. "Do we still look weak to you? I do not care how you survived the tower. I will make you regret returning." He activates his skill, divine armament. Massive chains lock our hero in place. A cluster of deadly spikes forms right in front of him. Wow, that is pretty impressive, Lee Geon mocks. Shut up, you bastard. The spikes shoot forward, tearing the entire area to shreds. A mountain of blades stacks on top of him. Did he finally die? Honestly, I was shocked he even made it back from the Devil's Tower. But he is still too stupid to fight me head on. Did he think a few level ups and some experience points would save him? What a fool. Did he think I spent 20 years doing nothing? But then, a brilliant green light shines from within. Yang Wei instantly freezes. A massive explosion erupts, shattering the blades as our hero bursts through the debris. He delivers a brutal punch straight to the big guy's face, launching him backward. How did he survive that? Are you really Lee Geon? The main character just laughs. So you finally figured it out, you fat coward. He stomps his foot onto Yang Wei's stomach. Yeah, that is right. I am really back. How did he escape? And what is with your trash weapons? A full recovery like this should be impossible, even for those top-tier Aquarius healers. System windows pop up. Near-death experience confirmed. Skill unlocked. 13th sense. Thanks, you made me stronger. Now, let us test out something new. Wait, please stop. The system alerts keep rolling. The god Ares is absolutely terrified of Lee Geon, tearfully asking how he is still alive. Trembling in sheer panic, the god vanishes into thin air. Yang Wei is left in pure panic. What? Why did my god run away? Lee Geon casually replies, maybe because he knows fighting me is suicide. But do not worry, I will be gentle. I will only make you suffer exactly as much as I did, he says with a pitying smile. Then, he proceeds to beat Yang Wei to a bloody pulp. Sometime later, Hugo finally arrives. Hugo and his men look at the absolute disaster. What happened here? The place is totally destroyed. Hugo senses the lingering energy. No doubt about it, this was definitely Lee Geon's doing. Only he could leave a mess this chaotic. One subordinate notes that Yang Wei's life signature is incredibly faint. Is he even still alive? Hugo stays silent, focusing his senses. He releases his aura and orders everyone to step back. In a flash of light, he vanishes, rushing to where Yang Wei was defeated. Looking at the scene, he curses. That bastard Lee Geon. He actually left a message on the wall. What kind of madness is he planning next? Meanwhile, the scene shifts to the Ares Museum. Lee Geon arrives calmly, looking for his stolen relic. He sneaks inside, finding a massive, ugly statue of Yang Wei surrounded by tourists. Our hero sighs. That fat bastard is so obsessed with looking rich. He is showing off all this wealth, but I can already sense my actual weapon nearby. What is up with all these fake relics? It looks like he even stole the clothes from my house, but these displayed weapons are trash. Then, he spots a tiny item labeled toothpick used by Lee Geon. Found you, my precious. Suddenly, the security alarms start blaring red. A thief. Security. Get to Sector B, now. A massive force of guards surrounds Lee Geon, who is casually holding the tiny toothpick. Put your hands up, drop the stolen item, and surrender peacefully. They shout, weapons aimed. Yeah, I do not really feel like it, he replies. With a simple flick of the toothpick, the tiny weapon blasts through everything, sending guards flying across the room in heaps. You really should use what you are best with. Suddenly, the toothpick transforms into a cute, squishy slime. Good to see you, Lime. The system announces a divine artifact has been unlocked. This is the Slime of Creation Guidance, S rank, with the S rank trait shape change. Another system notification pops up right after. Requirements met to unlock a special skill. The creation workshop is now unlocked. This personal space allows for production, repair, reinforcement, and dismantling. With this skill, the slime's special traits can be granted to other items. Alright, shall we make our exit? But then, one last system window pops up. It is detecting a strong energy source from another one of Ares's divine relics nearby. Well, leaving empty-handed would be pretty disappointing. The little slime watches as he grins, opening a massive vault door. Time to loot. Meanwhile, Hugo finally arrives on the scene, but he is too late. The entire mansion is already completely ransacked, with guards fleeing in absolute terror. Lee Geon, please stop this. Hugo cries out as people run for their lives. I am starting to get hungry, our hero complains. Hugo desperately screams out his name. Just then, Hugo comes sprinting over, crying like a baby, but he charges right past Lee Geon. He grabs a random security guard and yells that if Lee Geon was alive, he should have contacted him immediately. What has he been doing since he got back? Lee Geon just stares in total disbelief. Hugo keeps rambling on, worrying about his friend's injuries and asking where he is going. That completely snaps Lee Geon's patience. He kicks Hugo straight in the face. You absolute idiot. You do not even recognize your own best friend. Hugo spits out a mouthful of blood, utterly dazed, while the terrified guard slowly edges away from the chaos. Hugo freezes as he looks up. We are starting today's wild ride with a divine artifact, a glowing slime, and some awkward staring. Hugo can barely speak, so Lee Geon prepares to punch some actual sense back into his head. Hugo finally blurts out "gun" and throws himself at his old friend, getting incredibly emotional. Even Lime, the slime, looks happy. Hugo can barely believe he is alive, but then Lee Geon punches him right in the stomach. Hugo reels back in total shock. The protagonist curses at him for hugging him out of nowhere, which completely convinces Hugo that this is definitely his buddy. Suddenly, the system warns them that Apollo has arrived. Everyone freezes. A massive golden aura flares up behind them as the god appears, opening his glowing eyes and staring straight at Lee Geon. Hugo looks incredibly nervous, but Lee Geon remains totally calm. Apollo teleports right in front of them, leaving Hugo deeply confused. The silent god just keeps staring intently at our protagonist. Lee Geon frowns, asking what the hell this is supposed to be. The system explains that Apollo doubts his survival and wants to verify his identity. Hugo is lost, wondering how the god plans to do that. Apollo raises his bow, deciding a fire arrow will solve the mystery. Hugo panics, hugging him while begging the god to stop. Meanwhile, Lee Geon thinks about just taking out this arrogant deity right now. I mean, who points arrows at someone they just met? Hugo frantically tries to defuse the tension, claiming Lee Geon is totally fine. But our hero is more interested in settling some old scores first. Hugo flinches as he suddenly remembers the terrifying voicemail Lee Geon left him, turning pale as a ghost. Lee Geon explains that he just escaped the tower only to find his house sold and reputation ruined. To make matters worse, all his legendary relics are gone. Hugo tries to apologize, but Lee Geon simply winds up and punches him in the face. Surprisingly, Hugo is thrilled, saying that Violent Fist proves it's really him. He really is Lee Geon's loyal friend. Just then, Yongwei's temple guards burst in, shouting that they found the thief who raided their vault. Lee Geon blinks, suddenly remembering that he is actually on the run. Hugo looks at him, demanding to know what he actually took. Lee Geon casually claims it was no big deal, revealing a massive bag packed with treasures. Hugo gasps, realizing he literally robbed Yang Wei blind. Hugo practically tears up and screams, asking what kind of insane disaster he just created. The guards prepare to charge, but their captain stops them, warning that this monster is far beyond their level. He knows calling for backup won't change their fate. Suddenly, a violent gale sweeps across the area, making Lee Geon look up in curiosity. That is when a massive shadow leaps directly into the battlefield. A colossal sword crashes into the ground as they realize the truth. This is the legendary avatar of Ares Pixiu, the Beast of Riches. The massive monster roars right in front of them. Hugo instantly panics, begging Lee Geon to drop the stolen treasures and run for his life. But our main character just tells him to chill. He already has a backup plan and orders Lime to get ready. The slime's eyes glow as bright light erupts from his body. A second later, he regurgitates Lee Geon's classic weapon. However, our hero knows fighting a god's avatar with a broken tool is suicide. So, he summons its true awakened form, which had been dormant all this time. Swirling green energy wraps around the blade, leaving Hugo totally baffled. Then, a massive lightning bolt strikes from above. A magnificent, giant sword appears in Lee Geon's hand. He grins, noting it is finally useful. The system reveals that the relic has fully awakened through the power of his Ophiuchus constellation. Boosted by the Snake Hunter trait, the sword gains a devastating fatal strike effect, increasing its sharpness and overall attack power. It also unlocks a new passive skill called 13th Sense. Now he can see the absolute path of destruction and trace the enemy's weak points. Lee Geon grins at his new toy, spots the beast's vital spots, and immediately charges forward while Hugo watches in awe. Now, you and I know this is classic Lee Geon, always charging in head first, ignoring the danger. He wants to end this quickly, but the giant beast slams its massive paw right down on him. Hugo screams in absolute terror as the dust settles, but the beast's paw suddenly stops. Lee Geon complains that Hugo is shouting too loud, joking that the monster's smelly feet almost suffocated him. With a cold smirk, he declares it is his turn. The monster freezes in absolute shock as its giant paw goes flying into the air, completely sliced off. The beast howls in pure agony. The system warns them that Pixiu has activated its special defensive skill. It rages and roars, but our protagonist stands there completely unfazed, telling the beast it should have just remained quiet. Since it didn't listen, he's going to play a bit rougher. As he prepares to swing, the system activates his Ophiuchus trait, Snake Hunter, unleashing a devastating wave of energy across the earth. The massive slash tears up the terrain, leaving a colossal trench in its wake. The The bystanders can only watch with wide eyes. Lee Geon stands tall amidst the absolute destruction he just caused. Hugo shivers, realizing this power is identical to Lee Geon in his prime. The massive beast is utterly defeated, and the system confirms he destroyed an avatar, granting him a surge of divinity points. Then, the system asks if he wants to claim Pixiu as his own personal avatar. Lee Geon is genuinely surprised. Only the 12 major gods are supposed to have avatars. Curious, he walks up to the beast. He gently pets its head. His dark aura wraps around the creature, causing it to sprout adorable little wings. The system confirms Pixiu has successfully become an avatar of Ophiuchus, making his current count 1. The beast shrinks down to a tiny size, wrapping around its new master like a cute little puppy. Lee Geon laughs, lifting it up and noting that a beast of wealth will make an excellent piggy bank. Behind him, Hugo is completely speechless. Lee Geon literally just stole another god's sacred avatar and made it his own. While Hugo questions reality, our protagonist happily cuddles the little beast. The system prompts him to name the creature, and after a brief thought, he names it Piggy. Soon after, they arrive at Hugo's house, where Lee Geon instantly calls his old friend a massive traitor. Hugo fires back, asking if he has any idea how much he worried all these years. Lee Geon calmly points out that while he was trapped in that awful tower, Hugo got married and enjoyed a nice family life. Lee Geon keeps teasing him, joking that he might end up robbing Hugo's own home next. Hugo tells him to relax, explaining that he can stay as long as he wants, since he actually lives there completely alone. After realizing what he just awkwardly let slip, Hugo panics and quickly clarifies he is not divorced. He tries to explain his wife's situation, but decides to just drop the awkward subject entirely. He asks what really happened inside that tower. Privately, Hugo decides to keep Lee Geon's return a secret from Seungjae and Yuha for now, knowing his kids were completely obsessed with the legendary hero. Back then, Hugo was busy fighting monsters outside, meaning he never learned why the other saints came out carrying the head of Red Eye instead of our main character. Lee Geon explains that the truth is ugly. He was stabbed in the back and thrown into a deep trap that was absolutely crawling with endless, vicious calamities. To make matters worse, Red Eye itself revived inside. Hugo is utterly shocked by this revelation. Lee Geon confirms it, explaining that the true form of the beast was resting deep within the tower. Its actual form was a colossal fire dragon, but he still killed it. However, the real threat wasn't the dragon. It was the tower's administrator, who had the power to resurrect dead monsters. No matter how many times Lee Geon slaughtered them, they just kept respawning. He managed to escape, but he genuinely believed he'd die in there due to how much that administrator tortured him. He suffered for a long time before using every bit of his remaining strength to crush the administrator. The collapse buried him, and by the time he finally woke up, all the beasts were gone. He walked out of that cave with completely new powers. One thing is certain, the traitor who backstabbed him knew the tower inside out to trap him in a cave filled with monsters. You and I can bet those backstabbers are about to get absolutely wrecked. Lee Geon is coming for everyone who stole his gear, but for his actual betrayer, he has got something truly special planned. Geon already has everything mapped out. But first, he needs to prep. Hugo is standing there completely dumbfounded, wondering what his next move should be. Geon's answer? Crafting the very weapons he is going to use to crush them. He activates his power on a tiny wooden horse, triggering his basic skill, Creation Workshop Level 1. This cheat code can summon a workshop capable of crafting literally anything. Instantly, the system scans for materials. It asks if he wants to use legendary divine relic materials. A massive loot list pops up, showing the corrupted essence of the Queen Spider and a calamity fragment that boosts success rates and power. Even better, the system detects several divine relics stolen straight from the House of Ares. Instead of overthinking, Geon decides to just dump all of them in. Let us see what happens. The crafting process begins, filling the room with an eerie green glow. System alerts start flashing across the screen. Creation complete. He just birthed a relic. And get this, it has a mind of its own. Say hello to the D-rank imitation horse. Write a target's name on it, and you can drain 10% of their magic power with a simple touch. The buff lasts for 1 hour, and the toy is fiercely loyal. Geon is thrilled because sentient relics can level up themselves. Hugo can only clap, though he notes this supposed high-tier item looks kinda cheap. Hearing that, the little horse immediately gets offended. Geon snaps right back, asking if the guy realizes how many rare resources he just wasted. The relic then asks if he wants to craft something better. Geon decides to save his leftovers. Sensing the danger, Hugo instantly switches sides, praising the beautiful design and calling our main character an absolute genius. But Geon is not letting him off that easily. He reminds Hugo that he was literally just insulting the horse. Hugo quickly laughs it off, asking if Geon learned design in the Devil's Tower. Geon just smirks, saying that depends entirely on how useful Hugo proves to be. It is time to deal with those fraudulent saints. Poor Hugo gets a nice smack on the head before asking how they will even lure those guys out of their domains. Geon merely smiles and pulls out the perfect bait, the legendary Golden Fleece chest, a true divine relic stolen directly from Ares. Instantly, the system interface pops up to explain its broken stats. It is an SS-rank treasure that can store anything, and even duplicate items inside for a small price. It is easily one of the most broken items in existence. But Hugo wonders why they even have it. After all, they cannot even activate it. Geon casually mentions he heard Hugo was a broke saint, so he brought it to fund their revolution. Offended, Hugo snaps that he is not poor, then shifts the topic. He asks if higher-tier relics cost more resources. Our main character explains they will use the chest to duplicate their crafting materials and forge god-tier weapons to crush their enemies. But Hugo points out the obvious flaw: neither of them can actually turn it on. Geon stares blankly, asking if Hugo is useless. Hugo snaps back, reminding him he serves Sagittarius, not Ares. Geon honestly had no idea. The room goes dead silent. Hugo suggests our main character try using it, but Geon shuts that down. They need another plan, though Geon casually drops a massive bombshell. He already sent an official declaration of war straight to a major TV station. Hugo freezes, his brain short-circuiting. He panics, screaming to know what Geon sent and where, but Geon tells him to stop stressing. They just have to move to the next phase. Hugo is absolutely losing his mind, calling Geon a total lunatic. Meanwhile, over at the Blue House in Korea, an intense government meeting is underway. A high-ranking official is absolutely ripping into the group. He mocks them for failing to defeat a single spider and bringing national embarrassment. He tells them they should have stuck to selling cheap charms. Instead of fighting world-ending calamities, this loudmouth is none other than Divine Captain Oliver, the Divine Lion. Someone warns him to watch his tongue, but Oliver scoffs, mentioning a random guy killed the spider. He openly wonders if the legendary Geon somehow rose from the grave. Another captain tells him to chill out, calling him way too obsessed with dead heroes. Meet the Gemini Divine Captain, Cho Sun-hyuk. He's the smart guy who ordered his men to retreat from the supermarket earlier. Cho defends the rumor, arguing that if it really were Geon, soloing that giant spider would be a piece of cake. He brings up Geon's legendary Russian raid video. But another captain dismisses it, claiming Geon only pulled that off because the Saints carried him with insane buffs and high-tier gear. He boasts that anyone could do it with that level of backing. Troy dryly fires back, dryly suggesting that maybe this guy failed against the Queen Spider because nobody wanted to support him. The captain instantly loses his temper, shouting that he is just setting facts straight. He claims Ares' faction won solely due to the sacrifice of an S-rank hero. Troy just chuckles mockingly. He jokes that he would love to meet this legendary warrior, though they would probably have to search the spider's stomach first. The petty bickering continues while an old man grumbles in the corner. He sighs at how the Blue House has devolved into a den of loudmouth thugs. Suddenly, an aide bursts in, yelling for the president to turn on the news immediately because of a breaking broadcast. On screen, a shocked reporter explains they just received a mysterious package containing photos of a severely beaten Yang Wei, accompanied by a chilling handwritten note. The message reads, "I am back." Forensics confirm a 99% match with the handwriting of the supposedly dead hero. Meanwhile, we cut back to Hugo screaming his lungs out at Geon. He demands to know what the hell Geon was thinking. Geon calmly explains it is a declaration of war, warning his enemies to prepare because he is coming to take all of their heads. Hugo begs the maniac to focus, pointing out that beating Yang Wei was already a massive crime, so why trigger a national manhunt? Geon casually corrects him, saying Yang Wei is not actually dead. Well, technically he is alive, just not in the traditional sense. A bewildered Hugo watches as Geon reveals the truth. Tada! Meet the new Yang Wei, currently trapped inside a sweating teddy bear. The toy starts furiously swearing at Geon. Hugo is utterly speechless, staring at the plushie. Inside, Yang Wei screams at Geon to release him. Geon explains that his powers evolved during the fight. He can now easily imprison souls. He scolds the angry plushie like a naughty puppy while Yang Wei literally trembles in terror inside. A baffled Hugo asks if this kind of magic is even legal. Geon ignores him and hands over a random orange peeler. Hugo has zero clue what he is holding, so Geon explains this exact tool was used to carve a horrific brand into his back. Back in the Devil's Tower, his executioner used this very blade, and the custom engravings prove it belongs to someone powerful. Hugo asks if Geon has any suspects in mind for the betrayal, but Geon completely ignores the question, casually tossing the trapped Yang Wei into the air. He decides it is time to visit a divine artifact shop. When Hugo asks why, Jian explains that the appraiser there might recognize the custom mark. Jian then asks to borrow a fresh change of clothes, and Hugo generously tells him to feel free to raid his entire wardrobe. Soon, Jian steps out looking incredibly sharp. He casually tells Hugo he is leaving servant number 2 behind today. Hugo freezes, demanding to know who exactly is designated as servant number 1. Jian just smiles, confirming that Hugo is indeed servant number 1 before heading out. Hugo fumes in rage while the teddy bear smugly grins at him. Meanwhile, we cut to the ruined battlefield. A squad of elite, sharply dressed women arrives to investigate the area. One notes that the Aries saint has vanished, with absolutely zero traces of his divine aura remaining. The scene then cuts to a woman relaxing in a luxurious bath. This is the Aquarius saint, Sophie Morty, wondering where that fat coward ran off to. If he fled with all his wealth, that would be highly annoying, especially if he made a secret deal with another saint. She demands to know his location. One of her subordinates nervously suggests that perhaps the returned hero, Jian, kidnapped the fat saint. Hearing this, Sophie merely smiles. With an icy glare, she mutters that those jokes are not funny, instantly grabbing the woman and holding her head underwater without losing her calm expression. While I was away, Sophie let her bodyguard slip up slide, ordering her to head to the artifact store. They needed to prep their divine items, scraping together cash for that crucial drama auction. Just as she was talking about how vital this auction was, another guard burst in with terrible news. Apparently, the other saints had also thrown their hats into the ring. She froze in disbelief, stammering out a shocked question. Meanwhile, over at the Lion Academy, a crowd of meatheads stared in absolute awe. Right in front of them, a monster was training. This beast was pushing through heavy squats before slamming the bar down. That's when a messenger crept up, delivering the news that my old artifact was hitting the auction block. Hearing that, he went quiet, dumped his weights, and let out a wild laugh. He declared that my relic would finally be his. This loud guy? The Leo Saint, Stephen. Then, a crackling portal of lightning tore open, and I stepped through. Hugo's son remarked how handy teleportation was, and our red-headed guide mentioned it normally cost a fortune. But hey, it is totally free for anyone connected to Gemini. We finally reached the massive artifact market, and I thanked him for hooking me up with a double S rank appraiser. He waved it off, but I could tell he was remembering his boss's strict orders. Since I was the one who crushed the Spider Queen, he had to babysit and support me constantly. He sighed at his phone, so I asked if his boss was riding his back after that whole mess. He got defensive fast. I just shrugged and handed him my bug-killing tool. The system screen popped up. My little orange peeler was actually Janice's desire, rank A. It summons double-faced soldiers in red and blue while activating a random special effect. The kid noted it was rusty when I took it from his place, so I explained I fixed it up. I told him not to panic if the stats looked a bit different. He looked around, completely in awe of this double S rank appraiser's office. Inside, the expert gasped, while outside, the crowd began whispering about a drop-dead gorgeous woman arriving. It was those same bodyguards from earlier, clearing a path for the Aquarius saint. She strutted in like she owned the joint, demanding the clerk take her relics before the big event. The terrified clerk stuttered out an apology, explaining the expert was busy with another client. That ticked her off. How dare anyone be prioritized over her? Still, she kept a fake smile. He promised to wait close by, but she couldn't stop wondering who was inside. And inside, of course, was me. I was browsing the pricey treasures, appreciating this master's high-end shop. Suddenly, the appraiser asked who crafted this masterpiece. I casually spoke up, admitting I did. The old man gasped, asking if I had some secret connection to the legendary creator. My red-headed buddy introduced me as the legend himself, but this Virgo affiliate appraiser just scoffed. He told the kid to stop playing around during a professional consultation. He glared back at me, demanding to know my actual connection to the legendary hero. I just shrugged and said, "What do you mean?" He sighed, explaining most only knew my battle skills. Apparently, I was also a legendary craftsman. He'd seen countless fakes of my work, but this particular piece felt completely authentic to my handiwork. Hearing that made me feel pretty smug. I muttered that he must have known my old self quite well. He proudly blushed, declaring he was actually my disciple. I stood there, utterly baffled. What kind of garbage was he spewing? I definitely did not remember ever taking a disciple to study under me. He admitted that someone my age couldn't be a direct student, though my crafting skills were dangerously close to real. Honestly, I just wanted to smack him. But then, he pulled out a tiny notebook, proudly claiming it was a gift I gave him back when I acknowledged him as my student. I nearly choked. That was the old notebook I lost. Suddenly, it clicked. This gray-haired guy was that clingy newbie who wouldn't stop following me around in China. Back then, I thought he was just a pest. Yet here he was, 20 years later, looking incredibly old. He got choked up, praising my incredible eye for artifacts and the priceless knowledge I shared before I vanished into thin air. He said I left everything behind, leaving only this journal. I narrowed my eyes, realizing this so-called student had definitely swiped it. He then laughed, complaining that my handwriting was completely unreadable. He swore my messy scribbles held deep, profound secrets. I wanted to scream that he was dead wrong. That was literally my hit list. Well, since I reawakened, beating people gets me their info. Since this old man is double S rank, he might hold some seriously valuable secrets. Out of nowhere, he offered me the notebook, saying it belonged in the hands of a talented youth like me. I happily accepted. I actually had some cash stashed in there, so losing it had really annoyed me. Suddenly, my system chimed, stating the sleeping journal was reacting to my active magic. It was evolving into a divine relic using Ophiuchus magic. The appraiser gasped, identifying it as a relic that locked away memories. He muttered that my power was completely unlike anything he had seen. Before our eyes, the battered paper transformed into a vibrant green, fully restored notebook. Suddenly, an assistant yelled for Jinyong, making the old appraiser spin around to see what was wrong. The assistant frantically explained that a saint had arrived. Jinyong just scoffed, asking why everyone lost their minds over a single saint. My ears perked up. A saint? Right outside? I muttered. Outside, the Aquarius saint was tapping her foot, completely disgusted by the commoners staring at her. She felt like dealing with these peasants was just an annoying part of public life. Meanwhile, the red-headed kid sipped his juice, whispering that Sophie Marie rarely went out in public. Rumor had it that dragging her out of the church was nearly impossible. Out of patience, she declared that waiting was a complete waste of her precious time. She marched toward the door to confront the appraiser directly. He had to buy her relics, and she was done waiting. Her guards desperately begged her to hold on, reminding her he was still meeting with a client. But she snapped, shouting that she would see for herself who was wasting her time inside. The second she swung the door open and looked at me, she froze. In her eyes, I probably looked blindingly radiant, and then the whole atmosphere shifted. Let me show you what happened next. She stepped into the room and locked eyes with me. She trembled. Stepping closer, my crushing, deadly aura hit her like a truck. She collapsed straight to her knees while her guards panicked. They screamed, asking if she was okay, but her mind was reeling. She felt like thousands of venomous snakes were wrapping around her. Terrified, she turned around and sprinted out the door. The appraiser and I just stood there, watching her flee. The old man asked why she bolted like that, and I casually lied, guessing she was just sick. Then, my system chimed in. A Zodiac member approached Ophiuchus without proper fear. Divine power increased to 35. I wondered if this was any different from regular magic, and the system immediately laid it out. Divine power is the raw authority of gods, which can be stolen from deities or harvested from mortals. If mine drops to 0, my zodiac completely loses its power. If it stays empty, I weaken. I realized I was racking up some insanely useful skills. I turned and asked if that crazy girl was actually a saint. The expert gasped, shocked I didn't recognize someone constantly on the news. He told me she was the Aquarius saint, Sophie Marie. I paused. Sophie Marie? So that's who this saint was. I realized that Brat had actually grown up to become a saint. No wonder I didn't recognize her. She looked okay back then, but even if plastic surgery made her prettier now, her rotten heart remained exactly the same. If I had to classify my hates between bones, worms, and trash, Sophie was definitely a worm. She barely counted as human to me, valuing her skincare over actual lives. Before I could say more, the old appraiser spoke up. He has no idea why people praise this girl as some saint of pure selflessness when she is actually super toxic and selfish. Meanwhile, Jiggy realizes he knows her surprisingly well. Outside, our holy saint orders her bodyguard to sneak back to the pawn shop and uncover that guy's true identity. The guard agrees, then asks what to do with the shop appraiser, but she just changes her mind. End them all. Wow, this saint is absolutely savage. So yeah, do not even try shipping her with Geon. She also suspects the Virgo saint is way too fond of that appraiser. Now they still need to sell their gear. Getting dragged into this garbage drama totally ruined her mood and crushed her pride. Plus, that guy triggered her past trauma. Honestly, both of them are just obnoxious clowns. She even offers her divine artifact, promising to unleash actual god-level power, but Sophie's assistant hesitates. Activating a weapon like that in a peaceful neutral zone is incredibly risky, but Sophie shuts her down immediately, asking if she is actually disobeying her. Next, we head over to the bustling artifact shopping district in the center zone. Strolling around is Hugo's red-haired son, just sipping some juice and chilling out, mind at ease, until he freezes. What is going on? Why is the street wet when it is not even raining? The puddle feels weak, but it definitely carries magic. Suddenly, he realizes danger is close. A liquid hand rises from the puddle, forming a creepy water double of his exact body. The kid is completely lost, trying to wrap his head around this. Looking around, he spots everyone else screaming as liquid doppelgangers pop up everywhere. Floating above, the saint enjoys the chaos, calling this her mirror duplicate spell. Sure, they are only mid-tier ranker level, but even tiny ants can topple an elephant if they swarm in massive numbers. A nearby civilian yells at the guard, demanding to know why she is launching an offensive skill in a safe zone. He orders her to stop. She completely ignores him. This is an order from the saint herself, meaning it is officially divine will. She activates her magic item, blinding the streets in brilliant light, while Sanjay rushes to intervene. But he is too slow. She unleashes the powerful water chalice named Oblivion. Huge liquid bubbles trap the helpless crowd as dozens of new clones materialize behind her. Smirking, she decides to personally deal with that guy inside the appraiser's shop. She commands her troops to round up every single expert in the area, sending her liquid army charging forward. Sunjae realizes he needs to escape immediately. If he gets caught in this, he is blacking out for sure. Meanwhile, we cut back to Geon. He calmly watches water dripping from the ceiling, while the mustache appraiser nervously tells him that something crazy is going down out there. Suddenly, a wave of liquid energy sweeps through the room, and an enemy manifests right behind Geon. She threatens him to freeze. Look, it is nothing personal, but our saint is extremely annoyed with you, so do not make a scene. If you want to keep your blood inside your body, just play along. Technically, the saint wants both of you dead, but if you bow down, apologize, and buy her artifact for millions, she might show some mercy on you. Meanwhile, the poor mustache guy is floating inside a water bubble, but then his jaw drops at an unbelievable sight. Geon just grabs the assassin's weapon and snaps it like a dry twig. He casually tells Jin Young to send them the bill for the broken shop. The assassin just stands there, her brain completely short-circuiting, while the appraiser internally freaks out because that dagger was a blessed gift from Aquarius. How on earth did Geon break it like a piece of plastic? Furious, she screams at him to freeze, summoning a massive liquid dragon to obliterate him. He pops it like a balloon. Then he smirks, asking if she has any more tricks. That was actually entertaining. This is pure insanity. He just deleted a high-level combat clone with a single slap. Now she finally gets why the saint was so furious. This guy is a literal cheat code, and letting him live means massive trouble for Sophie. Desperate, she unleashes her ultimate move, boasting that this attack is fueled by the saint's own raw power. She conjures a pack of deadly orange-rank water wolves, ready to tear him apart. Geon just smiles, unimpressed by her effort. He casually reminds Jin Young that they were told to grab whatever loot they wanted here. Well, he chooses these two daggers. Within a millisecond, he completely vanishes from the old man's view, blitzing through the assassin and her monster wolves like a phantom, slicing them to ribbons. He is actually impressed by the blade, noting it cuts through magical constructs like warm butter. The metal has to be way beyond standard tier. He literally just came to get his trash appraised, but walked away with god-tier loot. Once the wolves dissolve, the system alerts him that he scored raw data, a rare mirror duplicate fragment. Golden notifications flood Geon's screen, and he just grins, calling it gorgeous. The defeated woman can only watch in absolute horror. Every single summon was wiped out, like flies. No way. This has to be a nightmare. She realizes his power level is off the charts. Fighting him again is just suicide. So, she drops her pride and runs. Geon just chuckles at her, desperate escape, leaving the old appraiser completely speechless. Just then, our red-haired kid bursts into the shop, asking if our hero is unharmed because he was just jumped outside as well. But when he looks at the puddle of dead magic wolves, he has no clue what went down. Sensing the energy, he recognizes the signature of the saint's elite summons. Geon just jokes that if she keeps donating materials like this, he is more than happy to recycle them. Still, he warns Sunj that they should clear out before backup arrives. But the mustache appraiser hesitates, stopping them before they can leave. He explains that 20 years ago, he was a loyal follower who deeply studied the great creator's work. He remembers exactly how Geon would harvest his defeated enemies like a maniac after a fight. That savage combat style, that overwhelming dark aura. Could it truly be him? The legendary creator simply puts a finger to his lips, signaling him to keep quiet, and the old guy instantly understands. Our hero walks off, promising to return later for those sweet upgrade parts, so guard them well. He definitely has some questions for him later. The appraiser bows deeply, begging him to return, and watches our main character stroll out looking like an absolute boss. Outside, Sunjae asks why the saint wants him dead. Did he do something to make an enemy out of her? Geon just tells him to relax, promising to show him something highly entertaining. Cut to a local dessert cafe. The table is packed with delicious cakes, colorful pastries, and endless sweets. Geon is happily stuffing his face, asking Sunjae if he likes his ice cream and encouraging him to feast. Sunjae takes a bite but mentions that this high-end place is way too expensive. But Geon laughs it off, pulling out a shiny item the assassin dropped while running for her life. He says they are completely fine after scoring this sweet piece. It should be super useful. It is an official badge that functions as an infinite credit card while also holding passive skills. On closer inspection, it carries the emblem of Aquarius. If it actually works as a payment device, it might attract some serious heat later. Regardless, Geon keeps inhaling desserts like there is no tomorrow. He asks Sunj if he wants another scoop, but the poor kid suddenly freezes at an unexpected voice. Turning around, he stammers, "Captain Choi Sunuk." Choi asks if they mind sharing a table. Geon looks him over, realizing this is Sunjae's arrogant boss, the absolute clown who has been trash-talking him. Choi introduces himself as the divine captain of Gemini, Choi Sunuk, politely noting that his subordinate mentioned meeting a master appraiser. Geon casually confirms he is the guy. Choi says he heard rumors that Sunjae met an elite who easily crushed the Spider Queen, a feat even the legendary Yang failed to achieve. Geon asks what that has to do with him. Choi smiles, explaining that scouting incredible power is part of his job as a divine captain. Geon immediately cuts to the chase, asking if this is a recruitment pitch or a straight-up bribe. Choi reveals that one of Geon's legendary divine relics is going up for auction. There is no rush, so they can chat while he handles the bidding process. Hearing this, our hero immediately drops his spoon. Some randoms are selling his personal treasures. There is no time to waste. He demands to know where this secret bidding war is happening. Sunjae awkwardly tells him to clean the chocolate syrup off his face first. Choi just smiles, reaching out, and explains that since this is one of the Grand Creator's most famous artifacts, it will be sold in a fitting venue. The absolute grandest auction house on Earth, hovering 16,000 feet in the sky. Its name is Drachma, the legendary sky fortress. It is a massive paradise surrounded by floating islands revolving around a massive central tower. Cut to the saint, trembling in terror in her chair, while a figure nearby finally speaks up, telling her that if she is just going to freeze. Trembling, she realizes she should probably leave since her presence is ruining his drink. She curses him in her head as an unmannerly brute, but decides to tolerate his attitude for now. After all, this is the man who climbed higher than even Geon, making him the safest shield to stand near. Meet the Leo Saint, Stephen Marker. He warns her that the main character's auctioned weapon belongs to him, so she shouldn't even dream of bidding on it. When she asks where he is off to, he snaps that it is none of her business and orders her to stay put. He walks away, leaving her glaring at his back in pure frustration. Still, she tries to stay calm. This is Drachma. No matter how crazy that monster is, there is absolutely no way he could show up here. But then, she spots Hugo. Right on cue, a host welcomes the prestigious guest, while Hugo scratches his head, wondering where he could have run off to. He guessed he would head here since the venue is packed with priceless divine relics. Right then, the saint sneaks up behind him with a creepy grin. Honestly, she looks like she stepped straight out of a nightmare as she greets him like some long-lost buddy, asking how he is doing. She calls him Hugo Otter, and he instantly recognizes her as Sophie. Hugo admits it has been tough catching her lately, joking that even she could not outrun time forever. She used to be quite the beauty among saints, but she has definitely aged. Or maybe it is because unlike the rest of us, she barely has any disciples. Hugo just stands there, then coldly barks at her to beat it. He wants absolutely nothing to do with her. She sneers, asking if he is going to run away like a coward again. If he does, she warns he might lose his children next, just like he lost his wife. Hugo's eyes turn ice cold, but she just keeps digging the grave. She reminds him his wife is still breathing, right? But hey, that could change. What can a useless leader like him even do while his family completely falls apart? That is the final straw for Hugo. A massive wave of energy explodes as he glares right through her. He gives her one last warning to get lost, but she remains completely unbothered, acting like nothing even happened. Telling him to chill out, she effortlessly blocks his heavy strike with just a single hand. She reminds him that he should know exactly what a demi-saint is capable of. Right then, swirling water magic begins to manifest around her, when a voice suddenly calls out, "Hey, you pissed." She turns around, only for Geon to land a brutal flick right on her forehead. The impact is so ridiculously powerful she instantly blacks out and collapses to the floor. Hugo whirls around to face our protagonist in shock, asking what on earth Geon is doing here. Geon explains he was just worried Hugo would find a way to get dragged into another giant mess. Hugo jokes that he must deeply care for him, but Geon tells him to stop playing around. Hugo then sighs, wondering why this crazy lady keeps popping up wherever he goes. Meanwhile, the saint is passed out on the ground, literally foaming at the mouth, while our protagonist wonders if she actually has a crush on him. Hugo just stares, convinced this guy has serious issues. Then, we shift to the saint's inner thoughts about Liam, the 13th saint. Trembling, she recalls how much she hated Liam. No, actually, she absolutely feared him. That scarred face, his brutal nature of crushing anyone standing in his way, and those icy, arrogant eyes that constantly look down on her. Her mind drifts back 20 years. Terrified crowds were screaming that Liam had arrived, desperately trying to block his path. They yelled that this was the sanctuary of Aquarius and demanded his departure, but Geon simply stared at the woman standing before him and bluntly told her to screw off. She froze in sheer disbelief, while a voice in the background demanded to know what he meant. It was the young saint herself, furious that he would dare trespass in her sacred home and commanding him to leave. Geon casually shocks her just to check if her heart is still beating, then grabs her arm. He grunts that everything has gone to hell, lately, with everyone calling them completely useless, so she is coming with him right now. She instantly refuses, snapping that she has zero intention of helping a soul. Our main character glares at her, but she just keeps whining that he smells like sweaty garbage and that she needs to do her makeup for an upcoming interview. She demands he let go, crying that his disgusting, filthy hand is gripping her way too tightly, and that is where Geon loses all patience. He delivers a swift slap across her face, leading to a massive screaming match. Ultimately, she was dragged along to heal the wounded until she literally collapsed from exhaustion. She claims Geon is incredibly rude, irrational, and she absolutely despises his guts. Waking up in the present, she finds him standing over her as calm as ever, telling her she mumbles way too much in her sleep. To make it worse, she is actually drooling, which is beyond embarrassing. She stares at him blankly, and after a heavy, awkward pause, she suddenly shrieks, demanding to know what he is doing here. She screams for him to release her, and wonders how he dares treat a holy saint like garbage. Geon realizes she has not changed one bit in 20 years, still spouting the exact same nonsense. Meanwhile, she secretly plots, reminding herself that she is far stronger than 20 years ago. She plans to coat her palms in acid to melt the ropes tying her down. Ropes like this are totally useless against her, if she can just break free and regroup with Steven. But before she can finish her thought, Geon flicks her forehead again. He tells her to knock it off since her thoughts are written all over her face. She snaps back, calling him a brainless idiot. Her passive acid barrier activates the second anyone makes physical contact, and right about now, that deadly acid should start dissolving his skin, starting directly with his hand. She fantasizes about Geon howling in agony as he melts away, but he merely points a finger and mutters, "That is it. Full recovery." She is utterly speechless. The dissolved flesh heals, instantly, forcing her to realize this is not healing at all. It is straight-up theft. Geon then declares it is finally time to settle accounts. He mentions hearing rumors that she has been bragging about being his personal doctor. He calls that completely pathetic and demands to know if she sent her foolish servant to the appraisal shop. If she did, that is worth 5 heavy forehead flicks. She panics, begging him to hold on, but our protagonist simply raises his hand. Time is up. A rapid-fire barrage of forehead flicks rains down on her, while Hugo casually sips his coffee, reflecting on how Geon hands out beatings completely equally. Man or woman, it does not matter, though honestly, they always deserve it. Even so, Hugo senses something incredibly bizarre is going down. It is almost like our main character's divine status is climbing higher with every single blow. Sudden system notifications start popping up, stating his divine status has charged 40, so, The screen alerts him that he landed a critical strike on the Saint of Aquarius, rewarding him with a rare item called Saint Rank Data. After a brutal session, Geon finally pauses. The poor saint is left completely destroyed, and the system chimes in once more. Her divine status has been unlocked, currently sitting at -50. Geon interrupts, completely confused. Divine status? What is that? He demands an explanation, and the system explains that divine status acts as a god's core power source, essential for maintaining a deity's true strength. It also points out that he can siphon this power from disciples and even rival gods. If a deity's divine status hits absolute zero, their zodiac loses all power, and staying there could literally prove fatal. He puts 2 and 2 together, realizing he can charge his own status just by beating people up. He wonders why he did not steal any from Yang during their fight. Perhaps the system feature just was not unlocked back then. Suddenly, Hugo notices a smartphone and asks where Geon got it. Our protagonist nonchalantly replies that he borrowed it from a close acquaintance, specifically Hugo's own son. He adds that he must head over to the auction house immediately, leaving Hugo to clean up. As for the unconscious saint, Geon suggests throwing her in a trash can. Hugo stands there speechless as Geon casually strolls away, promising to call once the auction wraps up. Hugo yells after him, desperately asking what he is supposed to do with this brain-damaged saint. A little later, the front door swings open. Hugo assumes Geon returned and asks if he forgot something, but as he looks up, his jaw drops. It is not Geon, it is Steven. Steven takes in the bizarre sight of the tied-up saint, while Hugo can only stare back in surprise. Steven coldly asks what Hugo is doing here. He mutters that it has been a long time, though the atmosphere is far from friendly. Hugo demands to know why Steven is at the auction, and Steven casually reveals that the Saint of Aquarius recently forged an alliance with him, even as he stares at her bruised, battered body slumped in the chair. He then demands to know why Hugo is here. Hugo snaps back that he has personal business, which is absolutely none of Steven's concern. Steven sneers, asking if Hugo is also hunting for the divine relics of Ligum being auctioned off. That shocking revelation catches Hugo completely off guard, and he gasps, asking if Ligum's relics are actually up for sale here. Steven seems genuinely amused by his ignorance. He mocks him, saying the relics will cost far more than Hugo could ever dream of affording, so knowing is pointless. Hugo simply chuckles and calls him out on his bluff, noting that Steven has always obsessed over collecting relics crafted by Ligum. He points out that despite Steven's refusal to admit Ligum's true strength, he always felt deeply inferior. He wonders if Steven actually believes holding those toys will somehow make him as powerful as, wait, Lee Geon? Steven freezes for a second, but then both guys flare up their energy. Steven lunges, grabs Hugo by the arm, and warns him not to get cocky. Calling Hugo a complete fool, he says, he never wants to hear that dead hero's name again. Twisting Hugo's arm, Steven brags he's far stronger than Lee Geon now. Suddenly, a lackey bursts in, frantically screaming for the captain because there's a massive emergency. Those Gemini punks are buying up all of Lee Geon's relics. Steven immediately drops the arm, snapping that his time is too precious to waste. He tells Hugo to do whatever with Aquarius. If Hugo isn't here for her, he needs to scram. The auction is Steven's ultimate priority, so he storms out. But first, he drops one final threat to the Sagittarius Saint. Adjust that attitude and bow down if you plan on living. Hugo sarcastically thanks him, acting totally touched. Once they clear out, our poor archer stares at his trembling hand and curses. He's completely out of options. Meanwhile, over at the legendary Drachma auction house, inside the Gemini VIP suite, the announcer declares Gemini as the winner of the divine relics yet again. With that, the opening session is officially wrapped. The second round kicks off after a short break. Our protagonist celebrates, thrilled that the relic is his. A VIP host congratulates him, saying he's free to buy whatever he desires. He thanks them for the VIP treatment and the endless shopping spree. The hosts tell him it's only natural since they want a genius like him on their side, but a nervous subordinate whispers, asking if this is really okay. The bill for these relics has already crossed billions of won, but he couldn't care less. Instead, he turns to Cheon Seungjae, asking him to cover the tab because he forgot his credit card. Seungjae complains internally about the massive debt, but he can't argue with his superior. Suddenly, our main man pulls out a sleek black card, telling him not to sweat it because the bill is already settled. Hold on, that's Seungjae's unlimited card. When did he swipe it? Smiling, our guy claims he paid early because Seungjae looked wasted, teasing that bosses shouldn't make their team foot the bill. Oh, absolutely. Seungjae grins, saying he was just about to offer his personal card anyway. The kid might look incredibly young, but he's already trying to play 3D chess with my head. Still, he's the legendary super rookie who crushed the Spider Queen. If we can recruit him, no price is too high. Steering the conversation, the captain suggests they finally discuss the real reason they met. He praises our hero's endless potential, promising he could reach S rank or beyond with the blessing of the Aries Saint. But before he can finish his sales pitch, our protagonist notices something off. A faint purple fog, the dominating mist. Normal people would never detect it. It doesn't force obedience, but merely inhaling it makes you trust every single word this guy says. The captain continues, promising he could even join the 10 Saints. He'd gain unimaginable wealth, absolute honor, and the backing of the great Aries Saint. All for free. He extends a hand, inviting him to join. That pushy offer makes our protagonist burst out laughing. His sudden grin leaves everyone in the room completely bewildered. Our hero chuckles, admitting this day is hilarious, then asks for some quick clarification. He asks if they seriously want him to work for some low-tier minor deity. The captain freezes, shocked by the sudden hostility from his guest. Trying to salvage the mood, he claims there's been a misunderstanding when a knock at the door interrupts them. An employee announces she's brought the one auction items. Delighted by the perfect timing, the captain bids her enter. She steps inside, offering her warmest congratulations. She presents the item alongside a certificate, proving it's a genuine relic of Lee Geon. Our protagonist scoffs internally at the fake document, amused by how they trick fools. But the glasses guy completely freezes. He panics, asking if our protagonist seriously just bought a relic of Lee Geon. Our hero shrugs, pointing out he was told to buy whatever looked useful. The glasses guy shivers, warning that Steven is obsessed with them. Buying this is a direct provocation to the Leo Saint. Suddenly, the staff member apologizes, explaining the relic already has another owner and offering a full refund. But right then, the doors blast open with lightning. Everyone whips around, startled by the sudden intrusion. Steven storms in, roaring to know who dared to lay a hand on his prize. The terrified manager quickly points out our protagonist, blaming him for the purchase. The manager begs for forgiveness, pleading that the new guy simply made a foolish mistake. He promises to return the relic immediately. Steven sneers, agreeing that as long as the thief confesses and surrenders it, they're good. The manager sighs in relief, but Steven isn't done. He snarls, asking if they seriously thought they could just walk away after touching his property. In a flash, Steven grabs the glasses guy by the head. The host panics as Steven squeezes. But our protagonist steps up, telling the Leo Saint to cut the crap. He legally bought the relic, so if Steven wants it so bad, he can buy it for 20 billion. Steven freezes in absolute disbelief, then bursts into a booming laugh. He's impressed that Gemini actually has someone with real guts instead of cowards. Meanwhile, the onlookers panic, wondering if our protagonist has a death wish. Steven claims he likes this attitude, saying a real man needs backbone. He tosses the trembling glasses guy aside like trash and walks straight up to our hero, suggesting that since fate brought them together, they should mingle. He proposes a proper introduction complete with some violent sparks. Our protagonist isn't amused, muttering about what a massive pain Steven is. Before anyone can react, the Leo Saint strikes, noting that his opponent's reflexes have improved. That's the Leo Saint for you, a warrior built entirely for combat. His ferocious battle spirit completely eclipses softies like Aries or Aquarius. Once he bares his claws, he won't stop until his prey is shredded. Talk about a terrible temper. Steven lunges directly at our hero, lightning crackling wildly from his fist. The surrounding crowd gasps in sheer horror, screaming for our protagonist to get out of the way. Confident in his absolute victory, Steven sneers, telling him he can enjoy the rest of his days in a cozy wheelchair. But then he freezes. Our protagonist is calmly brushing dust off his jacket. Our hero asks if that weak spark was supposed to hurt. Dumbfounded, Steven stammers, wondering how his direct hit was deflected. Our protagonist sighs, mocking him for being all muscle and absolutely no brain. He asks if Steven seriously thought a skill he created himself would actually work on him. Steven once begged to learn it to save lives, but now he just uses it to bully others. A cold sweat breaks on Steven's face as he demands to know his identity. Right on cue, the hostess returns, announcing that the main auction is about to begin. Our protagonist smiles, ready for action. Another one of his lost treasures is up next. Steven promises he'll get his answers later, warning him to guard that pendant with his life. Once he leaves, Seungjae immediately turns to the staff. He eagerly asks the appraiser how that devastating blow was deflected. Dispersing a direct attack from a saint-ranked warrior is practically impossible. They both watch in awe, wondering who this mysterious powerhouse is. Meanwhile, Steven can't stop thinking that his goal is finally within grasp. His mind drifts back 20 years ago, when an unprecedented calamity completely devastated a remote island off the coast of Germany. News choppers circled the ruined zone as journalists reported live from the sky. They broadcasted that 4 days had passed since humanity's 13th awakened hero, Lee Geon, braved the deadly area alone. With no word from him, nobody knew if he was even alive. Other powerful saints had attempted a rescue, but they all failed, blocked by a massive, toxic barrier surrounding the entire island. The broadcast cut out, leaving the world in suspense. Back on the shore, a young Steven stood watching the fog. An assistant warned him they couldn't get any closer to the hazard zone. Steven could only marvel at how Lee Geon had penetrated a barrier that stopped everyone else. He gritted his teeth, frustrated by his own weakness compared to a man who didn't even have a god's blessing. What separated them? Was it raw strength, skills, or loyal followers? What was he missing? Suddenly, the crowd erupted in screams. Saint Lee Geon was actually walking out of the toxic wasteland. Spectators gaped in absolute shock. The legend had survived and conquered the horrific Delta calamity all by himself. Emerging from the smoke, our protagonist casually muttered that the weather was hot as hell. While bitter rivals complained that he stole all the glory, Steven found his answer. He turned to leave, and when his men asked about his signature weapon, he coldly replied he didn't need it. Keep that trash, our guy says, because he found something way better. This is exactly what he was missing, a total god-tier weapon compared to Lee Geon. Meanwhile, back at the dramatic auction, the announcer hypes up the crowd, yelling, "Now, we present one of Liam's 8 legendary relics. The ultimate weapon from Berlin Wolf." Cue the dramatic gasps. Everyone is absolutely losing their minds, but for our boy, it is love at first sight. He finally sees, and again, the absolute unit of a relic that will make him unstoppable. It is the legendary Great Bone, a massive bone club. The crowd is basically weeping. Oh my god, is this real life? They only read about this masterpiece in history books. It is the ultimate divine relic, completely broken in terms of power. So, who gets to take this gorgeous bone club home? Suddenly, the entire room explodes as everyone starts screaming and throwing cash. Our main character is just flexing in his head like, yeah, I literally used to swing that thing. But when he tries to warn Chien Sunung, Kanung ignores him. Not now, kid. We need backup. Get headquarters on the line. We cannot let this slip away. Our hero is getting seriously annoyed that they are completely blanking him. Then, the auctioneer bangs the gavel, shouting, "Now, let us begin the bidding for this item." The starting price is $1 million, then 5, 10, 30, 50 million. Suddenly, a massive wave of system notifications flashes in front of our main character. His fame is absolutely skyrocketing. Wait, what is even happening here? The system is totally bugging out. Seriously, why are these rich people throwing around crazy cash for a basic club? To them, it is a masterpiece made by Liam himself. Liam gets super annoyed as the explanation drags on. Look, there is a very good reason everyone is acting like total simp lords here. Rings, charms, weapons, literally every single divine item he ever touched is considered god tier. Collectors will literally sell their souls for them. Especially this one guy, the Saint of Leo, Stephen Marker Markin. Talk about an absolute fanatic. He is a major hoarder, traveling the globe just to swipe Liam's old gear. Plus, his power level is so ridiculously broken that nobody dares to challenge him in an auction war. Honestly, it is a shame his collection gets to hoard these gems. But wait, our guy tells himself to chill out. All the auction money goes straight into a government-managed bank account anyway. Then, he suddenly pauses. Hold on, the cash goes into his personal bank account? Well, in that case, he is totally fine with it. Go wild, rich boys. As the bids keep climbing, Stephen Marker suddenly stands up and roars, "I will pay $1 billion. The entire room instantly freezes. He struts forward with peak main character energy, snapping, "Did I stutter? I am buying this relic for $1 billion. Or I can make it 10 billion. The auctioneer just blinks in shock, then stammers out, "1 billion. A mind-blowing bid of $1 billion. Everyone else instantly gives up. Nobody has that kind of crazy money. Even Sunjae and the glasses guy are completely crushed, desperately wishing they could make a move. Meanwhile, Jian is just eating popcorn, enjoying the free entertainment. Finally, the announcer screams, "Sold!" The Great Bone Club goes to the crazy rich guy for an unbelievable $1 billion. Afterward, we cut to some cleaners gossiping nearby. Did you hear? That relic apparently sold for $1 billion. Honestly, you and I can only dream of cash like that. No normal person can just throw that around. I just hope someone shows up and totally wrecks that guy. But then, something catches their eye. They look up, and a massive ice dragon is standing right in front of them. The man instantly takes those words back. Back at the auction, Stephen is celebrating with his prize. But honestly, to Jian, that legendary relic still looks like a regular old bone. Stephen can barely contain his excitement, shouting, "I actually got it. I really got it." Everyone around him cheers and calls him the greatest. But then, a massive explosion erupts right in front of him. As Stephen wonders what is going on, that giant ice dragon emerges. Instantly, total panic breaks out. People scream that a calamity has arrived, while the creature says only one thing, "I found Lijum's relic." Its eyes lock onto Stephen, and it lets out a deafening roar before charging straight at him. Stephen just grins and summons his lightning power. He swings hard, sending the dragon flying, and the insane impact demolishes everything in its path. Laughing, Stephen says this is the first time he is thankful for a calamity, since now he gets to test this divine artifact right away. He stands there oozing confidence, throwing lightning around while gripping the bone. Still, something feels weird. Then, the damage from his wild attack becomes clear, and someone realizes, things are bad. The teleport magic tower is collapsing because Stephen blasted that dragon right into it. Everyone is horrified. If that massive debris hits the ground, this floating island could fall. Someone quickly orders the disciples to combine their strength and block it. Others jump in to help, and everyone starts gathering power, pouring out mana until it forms into a giant sphere. They launch it upward, firing it into the sky with a shout. The blast slams the tower, stopping it from crushing the crowd, but they quickly realize it still is not enough. The structure is too massive to destroy in time. Panic spreads again as people scream to run, but then someone yells, "Apollo's Fury!" A giant vortex of flames sweeps over the area, vaporizing the falling debris. In an instant, the wreckage is turned to ash. Everyone recognizes that skill. It is Hugo, the Sagittarius Saint. Hugo appears with his bow in hand, muttering that the idiot lion needs to learn some control because that was dangerous. People thank him, but right then, something else catches his eye. He looks over and sees another massive monster staring back. This one looks like a dog mixed with a dinosaur, and it is already gearing up to attack. Hugo realizes there is another beast. The creature keeps staring, then suddenly shoots fleshy tentacles toward the nearby crowd. They latch on, and the victims start screaming for help. Furious, Hugo curses. He draws his bow to strike, but a sudden roar echoes behind him. He spins around to see the blue dragon Stephen blasted earlier, lunging with its jaws wide open. Hugo realizes too late that he is about to get wrecked. Right then, just like you and I saw teased, the chaos reaches its absolute peak. The monster had crept. Its giant mouth was already closing in. It looked like game over until Geon rushes in, slamming the beast away. Hugo jumps in shock, yelling, "Hey, pay attention!" Our protagonist sends the monster flying, and Hugo gasps a quick thank you. But Geon fires back, asking why he has to save a combat saint. He even asks how Hugo can possibly be weaker than a production saint like himself. Geon says he gets nervous whenever he leaves Hugo alone. This leaves Hugo looking totally depressed, and the two start bickering like usual. Then, something catches their eye again. It is Stephen running over, waving the bone and yelling, "Do not interfere! I am testing my new weapon!" The monster roars right back at him, and Geon realizes he almost forgot that Idiot was still around. From above, Stephen starts gathering lightning again, shouting that no one should ruin the stage prepared for him and the great bone. But Geon notices something off while the monster keeps growling. Stephen then unleashes his sovereign skill, Battlefield of the Victors, forming a massive lightning shield around the area. Smirking, he tells them to watch closely inside his unbreakable thunderstorm. He claims that earlier he was unprepared, using basic magic, but now they will see the true power of the Great Bone. The crowd starts hyping him up, calling Stephen the strongest saint and saying not even Lee Geon could stand against him. Fully pumped, Stephen drags the giant bone forward, though Geon is not buying it at all. Stephen yells for the beast to prepare for his fury, slamming the bone onto its head. The monster does not budge. Stephen just stares. Everyone else is completely confused too. Stephen slowly steps back, watching the monster as it stares right back. He scratches his head, and the beast somehow looks just as confused. Then, Stephen gets mad, winds up, and starts hammering it with hit after hit. The monster finally loses patience, punching him square in the face and sending him flying. Tumbling back, Stephen cannot understand it. Those attacks landed, so why is Lee Geon's weapon not working? We cut to Geon, who is touching the lightning barrier trapping them inside. He swears that once they get out, he will not go easy on that stupid lion. Trapping them with his own sovereign skill was unbelievably dumb. Still, Geon decides they need to deal with the enemies in front of them. Then we see the people possessed by the monster. They look like a pack of zombies, and you and I know these people are not actually part of the calamity. They were just caught by its ability. Since they are standing in front of it, the beast is using them as hostages. That means they cannot attack carelessly. The possessed people beg for help as they stagger forward, but Geon casually suggests aiming for the head. Hugo totally panics, asking what he is talking about, while Geon admits he does not really have a plan. He just wants to rip the parasites right off them. Hugo begs him to wait, but one monster lunges at Geon with its jaws open. Our protagonist grabs its head, gives it a cold look, and whispers, "Now." Then, he literally rips the monster's ability off like it is nothing. Hugo is left staring in absolute shock while Geon just grins, saying it is simple. The victim collapses, completely free of the monster. Hugo asks if the guy is actually okay, and Geon says he probably is, just knocked out. Hugo still cannot believe his eyes and asks how Geon pulled that off. Geon says it was just brute force. Hugo sighs that he cannot do that because he is not absurdly strong. Our protagonist shrugs and says he will handle them anyway, adding that he never expected much from a weakling like Hugo. That only makes Hugo furious. Still, Hugo says they cannot charge blindly and offers to cover him. The two start powering up, Hugo with fire and Geon with black lightning. He asks Efro if he still remembers the drill. Efro smiles confidently, and our protagonist tells him to keep up. Hugo summons his fire bow, and Geon says instead of standing around, they should finish this right now. The beast and the possessed crowd spin toward Geon. He gets ready and bursts forward at high speed, tearing right through the middle of them. His lightning spreads, hitting every possessed person and shattering the monster's control. The creature stares at Geon in shock, firing a volley of slime shots. Geon dodges with ease, but realizes the monster was not just aiming at him. It was targeting the saved civilians. Just as they start waking up, the beast tries to reclaim them. From the back, Hugo gathers power and fires a rain of flaming arrows, vaporizing the attack before it can touch them. The civilians flinch and shield themselves. With a serious look, Hugo vows that as long as he is here, the monster will not touch them. Geon praises him, then tells the ugly thing to stop. Instead of wasting time, this ugly beast locks onto our protagonist. Geon winds up a massive punch, blasting the creature straight into the sky, leaving it screaming in absolute terror. Talk about overkill. Geon completely tears the monster apart in a single shot. He just stands there looking cool, because of course he does. Typical main character behavior, wrapping things up instantly. Now that the boss is dead, the mind-controlled victims are finally waking up on the ground. But before Geon can celebrate, something weird catches his eye. He stops, trying to figure it out. Suddenly, system notifications start spamming his screen, showing off all his shiny new skills. One of them is called Fighter's Instinct Level 1, and the system asks if he wants to activate it. Geon realizes this skill needs some divine power to run, so what better time to test it? He hits accept. Meanwhile, we cut to Steven, who is still desperately holding onto his precious bone. He is crying inside, wondering why this legendary bone artifact is totally useless right now. Is he too weak to draw out its power, or is he just inferior to that hideous beast? While the crowd panics, thinking Steven is totally doomed, the vibe suddenly changes. Geon's massive aura begins to flood the entire battlefield, and he steps up with his bare hands. He literally tears Steven's ultimate skill wide open. Steven is speechless. His sovereign power was shattered like glass. Sensing true terror, the monster decides to grab the relic before dealing with Geon, but the second it tries to take a bite, Geon just snaps. Shut up! He slams the beast down so hard the shockwave blows everyone away, sending Steven flying while Geon remains completely unmoved. The monster is absolutely flattened, unable to process how any mortal could possess such terrifying strength. It literally asks if our protagonist is even human. Geon just scoffs, asking what kind of nonsense it is talking about, before stomping down and obliterating the entire area. Steven watches in total shock, realizing only one person possessed this raw destruction. Before he can even finish his sentence, Geon hits him with a terrifying grin. He welcomes back the old times, calling Steven a pathetic little lion who spent way too long ruining his reputation. Steven is already on the floor, shaking like a leaf. He stammers that this is impossible and tries to swing at Geon, but he completely freezes when his ultimate weapon gets caught effortlessly. Shivering in fear, Steven has to listen to Geon mock him for playing around with such a cheap toy. Then, Geon casually crushes the legendary bone with his bare hands. He apologizes for shattering his dreams, but explains it was just a regular old bone. He throws the dust right into Steven's face, making him realize all his hard work was utterly pointless. So now, Geon says it's his turn to have some fun. Steven begs for mercy, but time is up. Geon punches him so hard he blasts straight through the floor, sending Steven falling. While Steven plummets, we see the saint far away, slowly waking up on the ground. She is super confused, holding her aching head. Meanwhile, Hugo can only stare at the massive hole Geon left. Our main character casually bids farewell to that stupid lion, assuming he even survived. Hugo asks why on earth he threw him from such a height, and Geon just shrugs it off. He claims a guy that tough will probably survive. Maybe. Hugo asks if the hostages are safe, and Geon points toward the crowd. Everyone is cheering and celebrating their survival. Geon snaps his fingers, summoning Piggy, his cute little pet. He commands Piggy to go vacuum up all the loot. Hugo sighs, realizing Geon is still the greediest man alive. While Piggy sucks up the treasure, Hugo casually asks about the guy who lent Geon a phone. Geon mentions he thinks his name was Sunjai, and that name immediately sends a shiver down Hugo's spine. Geon adds that this young Gemini kid seemed pretty sharp, so maybe he should keep him around. Hugo starts trembling, because John is talking about the one son he wanted to protect most. In his mind, Hugo is screaming in pure panic. Of all people, his son just had to get involved with this walking natural disaster. He remembers his promise to keep his kids far away. His kids absolutely worship the legendary hero, and if they find out he's alive, Hugo's peaceful life is over. He mentions Sunjai was hanging out with a Gemini bishop who can teleport. If that bishop gets called, the whole Gemini squad will teleport here instantly. That realization sends Hugo into a massive panic, and he yells that they need to pack up and run right now. Hugo scrambles for an excuse, saying Geon must be exhausted and shouldn't deal with Gemini. Geon pauses, remembering the absolute chaos he caused with Sunjai earlier, and agrees Hugo might have a point. Yeah, they probably hate him. Sorry, Sunjai. Hugo tries to usher him away as fast as possible, but right at that exact moment, a familiar voice calls out, "Dad." Hugo freezes in sheer horror. Sunjai suddenly appears right behind them, leaving Hugo completely speechless. He gasps out his son's name, utterly shocked that he made it here so fast. Sunjai demands his dad tell him the truth, but before Hugo can lie his way out of this, the dying monster groans Jian's name and shoots a desperate wave of slime attacks. It flies straight at them. But right before it hits, Lime pops out of nowhere and literally vacuums up the entire monster until nothing is left. Suddenly, a system message pops up. He just acquired poison resistance, expanding his body of 100 poison skill. Now, any divine artifact he creates will automatically have poison resistance as a default stat. Jian just stares at Lime swallowing the beast and then completely loses his mind. He screams at his greedy pet for eating literal garbage off the floor, ordering it to spit it out. He vigorously shakes the poor slime, while Hugo watches, sweating over how dangerously close they came to disaster. Meanwhile, Sunjai is staring, wondering if this slime is the legendary beast. Sunjai remembers it from the stories, and Hugo realizes his son is putting the pieces together. It was Jian's signature artifact, carrying that same monstrous magical power from the history books. This was the one person his introverted dad was ever friends with. Looking at the slime, Sunjai gets incredibly emotional, realizing this crazy guy is definitely the legendary hero himself. Poor Hugo is taking mental damage in the corner, while Sunjai's eyes sparkle with pure excitement. Meanwhile, we cut over to the United States, inside the massive Lion Temple headquarters. In a tense meeting room, the top executives are screaming at each other because they still cannot find the Lion Saint. Someone suggests paying Gemini whatever it takes to track him down. This idea comes from Oliver, the Lion Bishop, but another executive points out that Gemini probably hates them now, especially after the absolute mess Oliver made during his last public appearance. Oliver mutters that he was just trying to show off because he was new. The argument continues until someone quietly asks if the guy who beat up their leader is actually Geon. Oliver laughs it off, claiming that even if it is Geon, he already lost once. Plus, their saint is the strongest of them all. But then, a phone starts loudly ringing, and the ringtone? A hilarious troll song completely mocking the Lion Temple while praising Geon. The entire room freezes in dead silence, staring in utter disbelief at the culprit. The culprit is Urim, their high-ranking cardinal, who awkwardly giggles and claims she forgot to silence her phone. Another executive snaps, furious that she is playing troll music during a crisis. Urim casually asks why they are even looking for that idiot anyway. Before they can yell at her, she shrugs, saying their saint is incredibly tough and will probably survive somehow. Everyone stares, wondering if she just accidentally said the quiet part out loud. Ignoring the angry shouting, Urim checks her phone to see a text saying they have a cool new uncle. The message begs her to hurry home because the legends are true. While her boss continues to scream in her face, Urim is completely locked onto her screen, totally ignoring him. Uncle? What on earth does that even mean? Without explaining, she declares she is leaving and lets them handle the rest. She turns around and walks out, leaving everyone speechless. But the man, in glasses, is left furious, screaming after her. Next, we head over to the Aquarius dorm, where Sophie Marty resides. Outside, a desperate crowd gathers, begging the saint to finally speak up. They want real answers about the Devil's Tower incident, Lee Geon's involvement, and who got abducted. They also demand the truth about what happened 20 years ago, but her guards quickly step in to shut them down. They claim the saint needs rest. Official answers will come later, so everyone must clear out. Upstairs, Sophie watches this chaos unfold with growing dread. Wearing a face mask, she absolutely beams over Lee Geon. How could he stir up this much trouble? Her mind drifts back to the disaster at Devil's Tower. People were screaming, desperate to escape. Rumors spread that the saint had been kidnapped and released by crazy criminals. Wrapped in bandages and looking miserable, she remained silent. Suddenly, the necklace Lee Geon forced onto her begins glowing bright green. Everyone panics, thinking it's an attack, but it's just a message. A hologram pops up, asking, "Who killed me?" Lee Geon, tell everyone the truth about 20 years ago. Sophie panics, completely lost. If she tells the truth, the other saints will hunt her down. If she stays silent, Lee Geon will definitely end her. She is furious that he set her up while she was knocked out. Worst of all, she can't even take the necklace off. Screaming in pure frustration, she swears he will pay. To her, everything is Lee Geon's fault. Meanwhile, far away, our main man is completely relaxed. With Kafrino stretching across his lap, he takes things easy. He casually mentions that maybe he should start farming today. Then, we cut to the news. The anchor reports that Sophie Marty still has not emerged from her temple, offering 0 statements. Out of all the post-tower chaos, this might trigger the biggest fallout. But Lee Geon believes that's still not going to be enough to break her. Then, we cut to the home of Hugo, the Sagittarius Saint. An arrow hits dead center. 10 points. The shooter was Hugo. Using his brand new bow, he waits eagerly for Lee Geon's expert opinion. Asking what he thinks, Hugo brags that it is perfect. To him, it beats the one that old goat crafted. Lee Geon instantly gets annoyed by the comparison. In response, he completely obliterates the arrow that just hit the bullseye. Smirking, he calls that a real 10 points. Hugo stares, asking if he really had to do that. Even blindfolded, Lee Geon split Hugo's arrow perfectly. He just smiles, saying archery is actually pretty fun. Hugo grumbles that he did it on purpose just to show off. Lee Geon laughs, admitting he only did it to troll Yang Wei. Right then, Sung-jae approaches them, warmly offering Lee Geon some water and a fresh towel, telling him to rest. Our hero thanks him. The two sit together peacefully while Sung-jae pampers him. Meanwhile, behind them, Hugo is absolutely fuming with jealousy. He asks Sung-jae if he brought water for his own father too, but Sung-jae tells him to grab it from the fridge himself. Lee Geon just grins. While Hugo sulks, our protagonist checks his stats. Since his power surged at the tower, it is time to invest his points. The system suddenly announces that the Ophiuchus sacred domain, Serpent Palace, has been unlocked. Since it is still low level, the space is tiny. This sacred domain is where the Constellation Master resides, serving as a private territory to store and unleash raw power. Now, Lee Geon has complete control over his territory. He can even teleport that low-class goat avatar, Kafrino, inside. The system notes that human disciples can strengthen the domain further, which immediately catches his eye. Just then, Sung-jae reminds him that they need to head out soon, since they both have errands. Lee Geon realizes he completely lost track of time. Hugo asks if he has a meeting, and our hero nods. He has a Prosenator Oferti, a ton of people to see today. Later on, Captain Choi asks our protagonist if he's finally ready to join the Gemini clan. Lee Geon just keeps stuffing his face with fried chicken, asking if Captain ever gets tired of begging. Even the nearby waiter is shocked by his massive appetite. Choi insists that recruiting top-tier talent is always worth his time, adding that the legendary hero should not play innocent. After all, he used Gemini's funds to buy millions of dollars in auction items back at the tower. Lee Geon simply plays completely dumb, staring right back at him. He calmly wipes his mouth like nothing happened. Internally, Choi realizes he got played and curses him out. Though initially annoyed, Choi is actually starting to respect the sheer audacity. Now, let's watch what Lee Geon does next. Recalling the saints he has already crushed, he notes that the Purple Witch is next. He suddenly agrees to join Gemini. An excited Choi suggests setting an official date. Lee Geon demands one condition. He wants the elite badge Choi is wearing. The other disciples instantly get furious, yelling that the saint herself gifted him that badge. Lee Geon tells them to quiet down while the adults are talking. He explains that he needs the badge to access Gemini's exclusive perks. Sure, they can promise future support, but he only trusts guarantees he can hold in his hands. Surely, a legend like him is worth that small investment. Choi is left speechless, while his men beg him to refuse. Lee Geon tells them to decide quickly, because his schedule is packed today. He then checks his messages with Sung-jae. We shift to Sung-jae reading the text, where our hero says he will be slightly late. Sung-jae text replies that he can take all the time he needs. Lee Geon sends a simple okay. Staring at his screen, Sung-jae chuckles, thinking about how shocked his sister, Yuha, will be when she finds out Lee Geon is actually their uncle. He is thrilled to see her react for once. He also plans to get an autograph on the customized dagger his uncle made him. But suddenly, a hand snatches it away, warning that toys like this are far too dangerous. The intruder claims he is confiscating the weapon. Sung-jae snaps, demanding to know what he thinks he's doing. The guy messing with him is Yeonwoo, an A-rank Gemini, Templar. Sung-jae tells him to hand it over, but Yeonwoo sneers, asking if that's how he treats a superior officer. He adds that they own this cafe anyway. Sung-jae is completely done, cursing his luck. He wishes he had hung out somewhere else. He wants to throw a punch but holds back because this annoying brat is the Libra Saint's son, hence the massive ego. Suddenly, a system alert pops up. The relic, Yeonwoo's desire, reacts to its master being threatened. A random skill triggers. Blinding light erupts from the dagger, freezing the blonde bully in absolute confusion. Then, Lee Geon's face suddenly materialized, right before him, and headbutts him straight in the nose. His lackeys stare in sheer horror, unable to comprehend the sight. The dagger literally summoned Lee Geon right out of thin air. The blonde bully crashes hard onto the floor while Sung-jae beams, absolutely thrilled his uncle arrived. Lee Geon looks around, totally bewildered, and asks what Sung-jae is doing here and why he looks like that. Meanwhile, the bully is sobbing over his broken nose. On the blade randomly activated. Figuring out the situation, he glares down at the blonde punk. Realizing these guys were threatening Sung-jae, he asks how they dared touch his beloved nephew. The thugs tremble, desperately trying to remember if Sung-jae ever mentioned having a terrifying mob boss for an uncle. None of them recall this monster, but they agree he is absolutely horrifying. Lee Geon steps forward, ready to show them the price of touching his family. They panic, and our story flashes back to the restaurant right before Lee Geon vanished. Captain Choi had just accepted his outrageous deal. Even knowing it was a terrible risk, Choi decided Lee Geon was worth the millions of dollars to recruit. Besides, he planned to steal the badge back later by hiding a sneaky clause in the contract. Handing it over, Choi warns him to use it carefully, and Lee Geon casually promises to try. But just as Choi presents the contract, Lee Geon suddenly vanishes into thin air. Choi can only stare in disbelief. Then the waitress drops a bill for $790. Stunned by the price of his chicken feast, Choi has to pay. You and I definitely need to see what happens next. Beaten and bruised on the floor, the blonde rich boy still tries to act tough, bragging about his Gemini family wealth. Lee Geon literally couldn't care less and just keeps slapping him over and over until he actually begs him to stop. Geon, our main character, just tells him to get up. He was only warming up. Now the guy panics because his magic shield failed. Furious, he snaps, calling Geon an arrogant worm of Faris. He then summons a giant monster right behind him. Our main character just watches without even flinching, while everyone else panics and screams for people to run. They know this place is about to turn into a total disaster zone. Geon mocks him, saying this is the price for playing tough. With a sigh, he calls the guy way too noisy, expecting something actually impressive. That useless power isn't even good enough to light charcoal. Suddenly, a system message pops up. He mastered the magic and obtained the Bull of Faris S-rank data. The blonde guy is completely stunned, asking how this is possible. Is Geon actually a high-level mage? He simply replies, no, he's just a blacksmith. Then, a flood of system notifications starts appearing, asking if he wants to use the data as a skill. Geon decides to show him how it's really done. He calls out, "Burning manly Bull of Faris," and a massive minotaur tears through everything in sight. Moments later, the blonde guy is smashed into a wall, utterly wrecked. Geon warns him that if he ever touches Sung-jae again, he'll get skewered, then comforts Sung-jae, telling him not to fear idiots because his uncle has his back. Sung-jae happily smiles. Just then, Yoha finally arrives, looking for Sung-jae, only to stare at the massive pile of destruction around her, wondering if everyone is safe. But Sanji eagerly rushes up, telling her she won't believe what just happened. He points forward, telling her to come see the ultimate hero who conquered uncountable disasters and saved humanity countless times. It's the same legend from the old videos they watched on repeat as kids. We catch a glimpse of young Sung-jae and Yoha back then. Now, she looks at him in absolute shock, whispering, "Mr. Hero." She literally pinches herself to make sure she's not dreaming. Radiating excitement, she realizes it actually is him. She simply can't believe how incredibly handsome he is. 20 years ago, he was covered in scars, and after spending 2 decades in the Devil Tower, she expected worse. But she realizes none of that matters. All that matters is what a spectacular hero he is. She's just incredibly happy that he's alive and well. Sung-jae laughs and points out she said that out loud, leaving her completely embarrassed. Yeon just smiles and tells her it's a pleasure to meet her. She introduces herself as Yoha, thanking him for saving Sanji. He laughs, telling her there's no need for formalities since she's Hugo's kid. Hearing that gets her super emotional. She apologizes for asking so suddenly, but she has a massive favor to request. Geon tells her not to hold back, jokingly asking if she wants an autograph. She starts stammering, asking if he has some free time, when suddenly a lava beast erupts behind him with a deafening roar. Geon reacts, deeply confused about what kind of favor this is, but then he sees the beast. Yoha instantly decapitates the monster, while Sanji cowers behind our main character. She tells him to give her a brief second to finish cleanup, before asking properly. She charges off at full speed to handle the remaining threats. Sanji mentions she only gets this hyper because of Geon. Realizing what she hinted at, Geon asks, "Did she just ask to marry me? Wait, what does that even mean?" Outside, Alarms blare as the broadcast warns that a massive disaster-level threat has surfaced. This is not a drill, and everyone must evacuate immediately. Monsters swarm the skies, while giant worm beasts rip the city apart. Civilians flee in terror, but one creature is already riddled with holes like Swiss cheese, courtesy of Yoha and her spear. More beasts charge her, but she pushes herself to the absolute limit, needing more speed. She slices through them like butter, desperate to wrap this up as fast as possible so she can update her uncle. Yet, the skies just keep filling with monsters. Annoyed by the endless waves of destruction, she decides it is time to clear the board once and for all. Spinning her weapon, she charges directly into the horde. Yoha screams at them not to interrupt her proposal, hurling her spear with enough force to obliterate everything in its path. She screams out her signature move, Lotus Flesh. The blast leaves pure devastation in its wake. Watching from afar, Jian smiles. He followed her out of worry, but she clearly didn't need any help. Her battle instincts actually surpass her father Hugo's, but when Yoha spots Jian, she gets totally distracted. Right then, a monster sneaks up behind her, but he intercepts it in a flash, saving both her and Sunja. Blushing, she's amazed he casually dodged her shockwave, proving there really are incredible humans out there. Suddenly, a fierce monster woman appears out of nowhere, brandishing a whip, declaring Jian will be her new pet. Riding a mutated turtle-like beast, she mockingly asks our hero why everyone loves playing with fire. Jian calmly replies that he wasn't seeking a fight, but since he needs materials for relic crafting, this works perfectly. She laughs, calling him her premium fuel source and training toy. That's when Jian recognizes them, the dangerous illusion race. Knowing he must stop them, he turns to Yoha, asking why she's distracted again. She was about to solo them, so he tells her to step back and let him handle this while she protects civilians with Sunja. He trusts them since they're both incredibly strong. Yoha smiles and happily agrees, while Sunja begins summoning his massive construct. While Yoha readies her spear, Jian tells the enemies it's time to have some fun. Instantly, the monster woman lunges with her whip, screaming for blood as she tries to tear him apart. Jian casually keeps one hand in his pocket while dodging every single strike. When she finally snags him with her whip, she cheers, bragging about how fun it will be to break him. She hurls him into the air, smashing him through multiple buildings before slamming him into the concrete. However, Jian just shreds her whip with bare hands, telling her she talks way too much. For someone so incredibly weak, he asks if that is her actual limit. Grinning wildly, she says not even close, and her giant turtle releases a devastating torrent of flame right at him. A massive explosion rocks the area. Meanwhile, Sunja's giant summon shields fleeing civilians, guiding them to safety. Proud of his rescue work, Sunja urges Yoha to help the remaining people. She nods, but looks back at the blazing fire where Jian was caught. He is strong, yes, but he's facing the illusion race, one of the deadliest threats in existence, a red-class danger. Even a legendary hero could struggle here, especially if he is still suffering from old Devil Tower wounds. Realizing he might actually be in trouble, she knows she has to save him. Sunja warns her that Jian told them to stay put, but she tells him to hide, promising to return. The battlefield is completely decimated by the blast, yet our hero stands perfectly fine. The monster woman sneers, thinking she overdid it and turned him to dust. But Jian just chuckles, praising the heat. Unlike the weak sparks from that blonde guy, this is actual fire. This flame will serve perfectly as his primary fuel source. Instantly, a system alert registers usable fire for the creation workshop. The monster is utterly dumbfounded that he survived her hellfire. Jian grins now that he has fuel. There is absolutely zero reason to hold back. He summons the Hammer of Creation as the system detects compatible fire for immediate workshop processing. Level 1 activates repairs, upgrades, and attribute boosts, applying his starting luck. When prompted to select a target for enhancement, Jian confidently replies that the choice is already made. As a green circle wraps around him, the monster woman watches suspiciously. Refusing to let him finish whatever he is doing, she prepares to strike, but Yoha suddenly teleports right behind her. She activates her lightning roar skill, raining a massive red bolt down on her target. To her horror, the attack does 0 damage, and the cursed monster instantly blasts her away. Yoha coughs up blood after that brutal hit. The monster commands her colossal beast to swallow her whole, but just as those massive jaws open wide, something yanks the creature backward, leaving Yoha completely bewildered. She looks up and spots Jian casually holding the giant beast by its tail. He jokingly asks where it is going since they are still playing, before slamming the massive creature headfirst into the dirt. Turns out it only looked like a turtle, but it is actually a giant lizard. The beast crashes down hard with its mouth wide open, leaving the monster woman absolutely shocked by Jian's insane raw strength. He threw that hell lizard with his bare hands. Jian warns her that if she touches Yoha again, he will wipe out her entire race. The sheer, suffocating pressure sends the monster into a total panic. It feels like his terrifying presence is swallowing her whole. She cannot believe a mere human is overwhelming a proud member of the illusion race. Fuming with rage, she decides to stop playing around. As Yoha shields herself from the massive power wave, Jian remains completely unfazed. The monster admits she hates this form because she cannot train him now, but she has no choice but to destroy him. He is a red danger class calamity known as Infernal Wings. Vowing to turn Jian and the entire city into ashes, she activates her ultimate calamity skill, Infernal Prison, and charges straight ahead. She charges at him at breakneck speed, destroying everything in her path. But right before she hits, Jian catches her attack with one hand, making Yoha panic and scream. Suddenly, a massive explosion erupts, sending a shockwave that shatters the nearby buildings. As the dust settles, the monster freezes in disbelief when Jian calmly says that worked even better than he expected. The system chimes in, announcing his plastic gloves upgraded with Hellwing Fire can now withstand C-rank flames. He gets fire resistance, plus a useless bonus for eating spicy food. Durability is extremely low. Is a one-time use item. The monster is losing her mind because he stopped her ultimate move with cheap kitchen gloves. Right after, Jian's passive regeneration kicks in, quickly healing his minor injuries. Jian tells her she is going to pay for burning down the city by working as a permanent heater for his workshop. The proud boss is offended, but Jian is dead serious about his new slave. He tells her she is heavily underestimating his plastic gloves, which are actually super useful for eating spicy chicken. Suddenly, the system warns him that her negative energy is too strong to purify normally. To turn her into his avatar, purification is required. Jian's idea of purification? Throwing a brutal barrage of punches while her giant lizard watches in utter shock. Jian grumbles about why she is so hard to purify. The system then replies that the target is fully defeated, and dead targets cannot be saved. Jian is disappointed she died so easily, but since his fire source is gone, he decides to use her pet instead. Terrified, the infernal lizard instantly surrenders and becomes his captive. The now tiny lizard pops up, waving a literal white flag. Jian looks at his new pet and offers 5 naming options: torch, gas tank, lantern, charcoal, or la lizard. The poor creature stands there completely traumatized. Every single name is worse than the last, exposing Jian's atrocious naming sense. Ultimately, the system steps in and officially chooses the name Torch. Yoha checks on Jian, asking if he is okay, and Jian asks if they are safe too. They are totally fine, but Yoha mentions she has a very important question to ask him. This triggers Jian's memory of her earlier promise to ask for his hand in marriage once the threat was dealt with. He panics internally, wondering if she is actually going to propose right now. But before he can overthink, she cuts in with a serious question. She asks if he really sacrificed himself in the Devil's Tower, leaving our hero totally confused by her sudden shift in tone. She explains she always had doubts. While the world hailed it as a heroic sacrifice, the Red Eyes incident never made sense. How could the absolute strongest saint fall so easily back then? With zero proof, she kept those heavy thoughts to herself. But seeing his insane strength today confirms her theory. Jian did not sacrifice himself. He was set up by someone else. Jian smiles and praises her sharp intuition. He finally confesses the dark truth. 20 years ago, he was indeed betrayed inside the tower and stabbed in the back by his own allies. One of the 12 legendary saints who fought alongside him was the traitor. Yoha is completely horrified by this revelation. Weren't those saints supposed to be humanity's ultimate protectors and saviors? Why would they betray the very hope of humanity? Jian cynically explains the bitter truth. It was simply because he was too strong, outshining them all, which made him an obstacle to their greed. After he defeated the final boss alone, they plotted his demise. With the calamities gone, those greedy saints wanted to rule the world as gods, and Jian stood in their way. Eliminating him was the only way to secure their ultimate power. Yoha is devastated, realizing Jian was left rotting in that dark tower while the fake heroes stole all his glory. Jian gently thanks her and tells her not to shed any tears. He confidently promises he is going to make every single one of those traitors pay back 1,000,000 times over. The girls are left speechless by his intense aura. Suddenly breaking the heavy silence, Jian pulls out his phone to check the local news, spotting an intriguing headline that catches his eye. Saint Sophie has made a sudden visit to Korea, holding a press conference at 7 p.m. tonight. Jian smiles, realizing this matches his schedule. Meanwhile, at the massive, crowded venue, reporters gather. Inside a grand, luxurious hall, media personnel are flashing cameras and setting up microphones. Everyone is eagerly whispering about why the famous saint suddenly called this highly anticipated, mysterious press conference. Some suspect it is about the weird message that appeared on her legendary necklace, while others wonder if it is connected to the crazy rumors that Geon is actually still alive. Either way, a massive bombshell is coming. On stage, Sophie maintains her elegant, flawless smile, but internally, she is screaming in absolute terror, knowing her life is currently on the line. She desperately wants to flee, but with Geon's mysterious relic wrapped around her neck, she knows running is impossible. It could be a deadly bomb, so her only choice to survive is obedience. She envisions Geon pulling her strings like a helpless puppet. Sophie knows that unlike her corrupt peers, Geon does not make empty threats. If she fails him, he will erase her completely. Trembling with fear, she steps up to the microphone. Sophie announces she called this conference to finally expose the truth behind the tragic events that occurred 20 years ago at the tower. The mention of the Red Eyes raid instantly causes a massive stir in the crowd. Aren't those 12 legendary saints hailed as saviors specifically because they completed that impossible raid? Taking a deep breath, Sophie drops the bomb, declaring that the real hero who conquered Red Eyes was actually Geon. At first, the stunned reporters just murmur his name in total confusion. Some think it is just a joke, but as the reality sinks in, the entire room explodes. Reporters jump up, yelling questions, asking if Geon really defeated the calamity all by himself. Chaos erupts as they demand to know the truth. Does this mean the saints lied to the entire world? Sophie hesitates on stage, sweating profusely, completely unsure of how she should answer. Before she can confirm it, a cold voice declares, "That is impossible." A sinister man, Saint June, steps onto the stage, causing Sophie to turn ghostly pale with dread. June mocks her visible trembling, playing the role of a concerned colleague. He tells the crowd that Sophie is clearly unwell and in no fit state to continue speaking today, masking his malice. He claims the conference must be postponed for her health. Sophie tries to object, but he quietly snaps at her to shut up, demanding to know what she thinks she is doing. He reminds her to know her place and play her role as a fake saint, just like they always have. He coldly demands to know what she is trying to accomplish with this stunt. Basically, if she wants to keep her mouth in one piece, she needs to stay quiet. He cuts her mic, spins to the press, and offers a fake apology to the media, claiming poor Sophie is being blackmailed into lying. But hey, no worries, he promises to keep her totally safe. He bows once more and boldly declares that the press conference is officially over. The media immediately starts shouting in protest. What about Geon? Suddenly, pitch-black energy erupts from him as he sneers that the main character died in the tower 20 years ago. What else is there to say? He claims that if Geon was actually alive, he would have shown his face by now, but the press pushes back. If Sophie is being blackmailed, why is the culprit using his legendary name? Ending like this will only make the saints look guiltier, so they demand real answers. This just makes him furious. Stupid insects. Know your place. He begins charging dark magic in his hand, but a voice suddenly calls out from behind. Look at that ugly face. Are you really trying to murder all the reporters? Before he can react, Geon's boot comes flying straight into his face. Now, you and I remember the last chapter ended with that creepy stalker meeting the saint. Just as he tries to vaporize the reporters, our main character interrupts with an epic dropkick that lands perfectly, sending him crashing across the room. Sophie gasps in absolute shock, crying out, "Oh my God, he is finally here." The fake saint can barely process what just hit him. Geon simply smirks. "Long time no see, you rotten crab. Still looking as wrinkled as ever. Here is a little gift." Then, he slams a giant object right into him, leaving him staring in complete disbelief. Is that a tail? Cut to Torch, Geon's cute new lizard mascot, who is missing part of his tail. Then we swing back to our protagonist holding the poor lizard's tail. "Hey, rotten crab, who do you think you are shutting down my conference?" Suddenly, the crowd starts whispering. Wait, is that the infernal lizard's tail? Just then, the saint teleports right behind our main character, muttering those exact words. "I heard some expert defeated that beast right as it spawned. So that was you." Geon just clicks his tongue in annoyance. "Seriously? You are just a clone?" The villain is shocked he saw through his division skill instantly. He demands to know who he is. And Geon answers like it is completely obvious. "Me? Who else? The name is Geon." The entire room goes dead silent as the gravity of that name drops. Everyone just stares in disbelief, until one person suddenly bursts out laughing, and just like that, the entire crowd starts howling. He claims to be Geon? What a massive joke. A reporter snickers, saying he is way too handsome to be the real hero. Everyone is mocking our guy now. "You might have some skills, kid, but you are completely out of your mind. If you wanted to show off, pick a better target." But Geon does not even let the clown finish. He swings that giant tail down like a sledgehammer, smashing him flat and sending him rolling across the room. He casually spins the massive lizard tail in his hand. Seriously, do I need to beat some sense into all of you? What are you idiots staring at? Bring it on. He lunges straight at the crowd of reporters, sending them fleeing for their lives, screaming for help. Sophie thinks this is her golden ticket to escape, but right then, Geon teleports right behind her. She instantly freezes. Oh no, where do you think you are going, pest? You still have a speech to finish. Tell everyone how you left me to die 20 years ago while you escaped, and how you lived like absolute royalty after abandoning me. Go on, spit it out. The clone snaps back, cursing him out. But before he can finish, the entire room begins to shake, and the system sounds an alarm. A terrifying power from the darkest star is approaching fast. Corrosive black energy floods the room, and Geon's body starts cracking apart. The crowd watches in horror, completely clueless about what is happening. This is insane. What did I just do? It is not you, dummy. Look around. That is the raw, divine pressure of an actual god. Suddenly, a massive, shadowy figure looms behind Jane, glaring down at Geon. It whispers, "So you actually are the real thing. Splendid. I have no idea how you managed to survive the Devil's Tower, but since you are back, let's throw you a welcome party." With that, he unleashes a crushing weight of gravity straight at Geon. Suddenly, we cut over to Hugo's house. He is whipping up some dinner and sighing in pure relief. Finally, Singai and Yua are out, so he can eat in peace. He flicks on the television, hoping for some good entertainment. Instead, a news anchor reports live from Sophie Maris's press conference, which has descended into absolute madness. A crazy guy claiming to be Liam has crashed the party and is currently in a brutal brawl with the Sagittarius Saint. She adds that the intruder looks way too happy about the violence. As Geon keeps throwing hands, Hugo turns pale as a ghost and screams, "Of course, what on earth is that complete moron doing this time?" Back at the arena, the Cancer Saint gathers dark energy in both hands and blasts a massive shockwave, triggering pure panic as the reporters flee. Geon dodges effortlessly, taunting him that his moves are way too slow to ever land. "Got you." The Saint splits his dark wave wide, aiming to snare our protagonist, but right before it hits, he is stunned. See Geon block the entire blast with a single dagger. On top of that, he is balancing upside down on just one hand. The crowd is so amazed, they actually start cheering for our main character. The Saint fires more dark projectiles, but Geon slips through the barrage like grease and slides right in front of him. Alright, my turn to play. He charges ahead at bullet speed while the Saint prepares another counter, mocking him. "Did you spend 20 years just learning how to do acrobatics?" He fires another black explosion, but Geon simply sidesteps it with a laugh. "Is that your best shot?" In a flash, he cleaves the Cancer Saint in half, but something catches Geon, completely off guard when the body crumbles into ash again. "Seriously? You spent 2 decades mastering a simple substitution jutsu? What is this, Naruto?" The smug Saint replies that he will gladly take that massive compliment while Sophie shields herself. Suddenly, a massive dark tornado erupts, draining the literal souls of everyone in the room. Geon snaps at him, demanding how he intends to cover up this mess. The Saint scoffs that he will handle the fallout later. Right now, his only goal is to slaughter Geon by using the entire crowd as hostage shields. "Ah, I get it now. You were the rat who stabbed me in the Devil's Tower." The villain just chuckles, asking if our protagonist is seriously still obsessed with finding his betrayer. He laughs at how the great savior of humanity is hung up on such a silly, petty grudge. People might mistake him for a street thug, rather than a legendary saint. Geon fires back that he sure talks a big game for a pathetic coward hiding behind cheap clones. The villain merely chuckles and explains these are not ordinary clones. They are bound directly to the lifespans of the reporters. If Geon smashes even one replica, that person's soul is deleted, and there is zero guarantee they will survive. Our main character sneers that such filthy, underhanded tricks suit a rat like him perfectly. The Saint asks if those are his famous last words, promising to see him in hell, and commands his horde of clones to charge Geon, but they immediately freeze in absolute panic. A lizard's tail? How did that get here? So that is the skill you stole. Before he can react, Geon is already behind him, shouting, "Try this on for size." He lands a brutal blow on the Cancer Saint, as the system interface pops up to explain. Shield summon activated. You can instantly summon any target to act as a shield for the Ophiuchus vessel. However, you can only summon objects you have touched recently. Up to 3 targets can be designated, teleporting to wherever you last touched. What? What kind of broken cheat is this? Our protagonist strikes him again, leaving the villain baffled how he located the real body. 13th sense. You can pinpoint your opponent's fatal weak points. Our main character mockingly reminds him that his parlor tricks are incredibly cheap and obvious. I would be blind to miss it. Bullseye. Right then, Geon rips a glowing crystal straight out of the Cancer Saint's chest. The villain gasps, disbelieving that even the Gemini constellation could not locate his core. Then, the Ophiuchus avatar appears, swallowing the crystal whole. A massive flood of system notifications alerts them. You have acquired a fragment of Cancer's core, containing 33% of a saint's soul. An additional 20% power drop is recorded. The god of Cancer is utterly terrified, and Geon can now absorb the constellation's stolen energy. The heavy dark star magic instantly evaporates into thin air. Sophie stands frozen, completely clueless as to why the suffocating power suddenly vanished. The surviving reporters are left. Everyone is desperately asking who won the fight. Meanwhile, the Cancer Saint's body is literally crumbling to dust as he asks what happened to Geon in that tower. He can feel the power of a god. It is radiating right off him. Geon mocks him, saying that even after getting absolutely thrashed, the guy still won't shut up. He promises to make great use of the core he just ripped out of him. The dying saint warns that he still has a few parting gifts to ruin Geon's day. He suddenly vanishes, leaving our main character wondering what tricks he meant. With that guy's toxic personality, there is no way he goes quietly. He is definitely planning something nasty. Right then, our main character's phone rings. It is the International Solitary Organization, and the second he picks up, Hugo starts screaming. "You absolute idiot! What on earth are you doing? There is no time to explain. Run for your life, you complete maniac. I am watching the news right now. You just neutralized one of the saints. What were you thinking? A barrage of missiles is locked onto your exact position." Geon is just like, what? Up in space, a weaponized satellite locks onto his coordinates and prepares to fire. Our hero can only stare at the sky. Missiles? Seriously? Suddenly, they begin raining down at terrifying speeds. These are the Mormouth missiles, a catastrophe-class weapon created by the Capricorn and Gemini saints. They built this system after Lee Geon vanished, just in case a threat appeared that humanity could never defeat. This ultimate trump card can vaporize entire regions with a massive orbital strike. Geon is stunned. I cannot believe they actually built something that insane. But then, he realizes the twisted genius of it. The weapons were programmed to launch automatically the second the Cancer Saint's vitals went flat. Suddenly, those parting words about having one last trick make perfect sense. So, that high-ranking clone he just beat was basically his actual life support. Hugo keeps screaming through the phone, telling him to stop overthinking and start running. But Geon knows that running is useless. These missiles have enough destructive power to wipe out entire cities. Hugo panic asks what he plans to do about it. Geon just grins, saying he has a brilliant idea. He slowly turns his gaze towards Sophie, who immediately goes pale as she realizes she is about to be used. He reassures her that they still have one very viable option. Honestly, Sophie is completely traumatized at this point, having been bullied non-stop by him. Meanwhile, the missiles continue their rapid descent toward the helpless city. Geon grabs her tightly, ignoring her desperate screams to let her go. He immediately triggers a skill, and the system announces that under the authority of the Gemini Bishop, levitation and teleportation are officially active. They warp directly into the sky, appearing right in front of the fast-approaching Mormoth missile. Clutching a terrified Sophie, Geon yells that he knows she can liquefy absolutely anything, so she needs to melt this thing down. She panics, screaming how she is supposed to do that when he is throwing her face first into a giant bomb. Geon tells her they have no other choice. If she fails, everyone below gets vaporized. Without hesitation, he grabs her arm and hurls her straight at the missile. As she flies through the air, she screams out curses at him. Our main character just waves and shouts for her to go perform a miracle. She keeps crying and screaming in absolute terror until the system suddenly chimes, announcing the descent of the goddess of Aquarius. However, even this divine being is utterly bewildered by the chaotic situation she just spawned into. Sophie begs the goddess to save her. Even the deity herself curses Geon for being a complete lunatic, but there is no time to argue. She quickly begins stacking massive buffs, pouring raw divine power directly into her. As Sophie weeps in sheer panic, a single tear falls, triggering her ultimate skill, Tears of the Goddess. A massive, towering wave of water surges forward, slamming directly into the falling missile. The water exerts incredible pressure, fighting to halt the catastrophic weapon. Finally, the missile begins to crack and shatter into pieces. Sophie gasps in disbelief, thrilled that she actually did it, until she realizes something is missing. Geon is no longer holding her, and she begins free-falling toward the earth. Our hero just casually waves goodbye, figuring she will survive the drop with all those divine buffs anyway. Meanwhile, another wave obliterates the remaining missiles. She did an amazing job, but the falling shrapnel could still devastate the cities below. The public panics as debris rains down. Geon pauses, suddenly remembering that this defense system was originally designed by Gemini. Since that is the case, he decides it is the perfect time to send a little housewarming gift to that purple witch. He contacts Tyson, asking if his favorite sidekick can hear him. Tyson picks up and asks if he figured out how to stop the threat. Geon tells him there is zero time to explain. This is an extreme emergency, and he needs Tyson's absolute coordinate skill right now. That unique Sagittarius ability can warp any target to precise coordinates. Tyson is completely shocked to hear our main character sounding so urgent, making him wonder just how terrible the situation really is. Regardless, he quickly activates his magic circle to transfer the authority immediately. Our hero graciously thanks his #1 slave. A brand new notification suddenly pops up on his screen. It says Sagittarius has granted him absolute coordinate, with 238 charges remaining. Geon smiles, saying that is plenty, and begins gathering massive purple energy as system alerts flood in. The notifications confirm that the Sagittarius skill is active. Geon begins teleporting every single piece of falling debris to a brand new location. You and I are about to see where they land. Geon mutters that it is time to deliver a special package to that witch. Down below, citizens stare in shock as the falling debris suddenly reverses course, realizing they have been saved. They cannot believe he made an entire missile barrage disappear. Suddenly, an urgent telepathic message cuts through his mind, stating that this is the Yin-Yang Palace within the territory of the Gemini Saint. The sender demands that Bishop Choi report back immediately. Geon instantly recognizes the angry voice. He answers, casually asking what the issue is, prompting the voice to explode with absolute rage. The falling debris is raining directly onto the palace grounds. We finally see where Geon redirected the threat, straight into the heart of the Gemini Saints temple. Then, the scene shifts. In the president's office, officials are absolutely speechless. Our main character is causing utter chaos. He ruined St. Sophie's press conference, thrashed the cancer saint, and stopped a catastrophic weapon. The math is simply not mathing for them. But right at that moment, Geon crashes straight through the ceiling, landing right in front of them while carrying Choi and Hugo like groceries. Everyone is frozen in absolute shock. Our main character looks around, asking what these politicians were whispering about. Since he is already here, he decides it is time to settle some accounts. He demands they return his cash, explaining that he knows they still have access to the bank account containing the profits from selling off his personal assets. He just remembered it on the way. The politicians sweat, wondering if this monster is really Geon. If it is, they are in massive trouble. He tells them to shut up, explaining his attempts to access the funds failed. It makes no sense since he explicitly appointed Hugo as his financial proxy. Clearly, some shady business is going on here. They nervously explain that the government had a hard time trusting Hugo. Geon glares, demanding they repeat themselves. Their excuse is that Hugo is a foreigner, and after our hero disappeared, they could not trust a saint from another nation, especially since Korea lacked its own resident saint, and the Sagittarius faction had grown quite weak. So, they transferred the financial responsibility to someone they deemed far more reliable. Hugo is absolutely furious listening to this garbage. Geon just pats him on the back, telling him to cheer up, while Hugo practically cries. Our hero shrugs, telling the officials to pay up. The politicians begin trembling, fearing for their lives, when a booming voice suddenly commands everyone to shut up. That tone instantly freezes the room. A random sandal flies straight through the air. Geon smiles, noting that the star of the show has finally arrived. She loudly announces that she already seized his account, so he can beat it. It is the Gemini Saint herself. Meet Saint Rarquin. She claims she needs his entire fortune to rebuild the temple he just wrecked with those redirected missiles. She is furious that her beautiful home is now total rubble. She rages about the sheer cost of the damage. Geon just stares blankly, casually asking who she even is. That completely breaks her sanity. Gemini decides it is time to delete him from existence, summoning a massive magic circle overhead. The system warns her power is skyrocketing, sending the crowd into a total panic. They know they need to run right now. She connects herself straight to an ultra-powerful spirit. This is Gemini's absolute ultimate move, and trust me, we are about to see some insane, world-shaking energy unleashed. Down below, Rockin is screaming, bragging that John is completely done for. That is when the Spirit Queen, Lily Queen, answers the call, her majestic body slowly emerging piece by piece. She transforms into a beautiful fairy form as the crowd watches in absolute awe. Geon, however, is completely unfazed. Raken proudly boasts that Lily Queen is a spirit nearly on par with a sacred god. She asks if our main character honestly thinks he stands a chance. But instead of answering, Geon instantly teleports right in front of her, grabs her face, and chucks her away like actual trash. She goes flying right through the same hole he broke in the ceiling. The crowd watches her launch into orbit, screaming in pure horror at what he just did to their literal saint. Her summon immediately begins to falter. The fairy is pulled backward into the summoning circle as Gemini's magic scatters everywhere. Lily Queen desperately tries to escape back home, but right before she vanishes, Geon grabs her by the head, stopping her cold. He asks where she thinks she is going, then literally drags her back out of the circle. The system alerts that he has successfully captured the Spirit Queen, Lily Queen. Geon just laughs and mocks her. He asks if she thinks he is an idiot for letting her run. Terrified, she begs him repeatedly for mercy. Cut to our main character leaving the completely destroyed building, satisfied that he got his money back. Now, it is finally time to grab some delicious food. But as he glances at the documents, something feels seriously wrong. Why did the real Heiji not show up herself? She is the type to drop a meteor on a city. Geon admits he has been puzzling over this. Even after all the madness at the Yin-Yang Palace, she was still a no-show. There is only one logical explanation for her absence. The situation is bizarre, but our main character is positive that something is keeping her away. He knows that Hothead would never willingly control her temper. He is pretty sure he knows her location, meaning it is time for a little visit. We then cut to the apartment of Sanjay, Hugo's son. Someone suggests grabbing a bite while they finish up their work. They offer him a burger, but Sanjay looks a bit gloomy, staring at it. He decides he will eat something else and asks Jim what he wants. Jim agrees he wants something different, too. Just then, Hugo sneezes, and she laughs, teasing him. Gemini jokes from the back that she is just playing around. Someone chuckles that Iso would literally faint if he knew, but he is not coming. Next, we see Io all dressed up as they explain. He went out to run an errand and will be late. Geon decides it is time to start the interrogation. We see the tiny fairy queen trapped. She is locked inside an Ares relic, an insanely durable display case built to hold powerful items. Our main character warns her she better speak the truth, and she frantically nods along. He tells her a glass box is way better than being trapped in a book, so she should choose wisely. He pulls out an S-rank relic book, designed to seal anything away. This inventory relic turns targets into text and can disguise itself. Right now, it looks like a simple cookbook. The poor fairy panics and agrees, while Geon thinks about how weird Heiji's absence is. It means it is not a choice. She physically cannot come. She must be trapped somewhere, specifically Sanjay's house. The fairy quickly pipes up, confirming he got it exactly right. Geon gives her a single choice. Where is she? He pressures her, asking if she wants to talk or if he should guess. Cracking under the pressure, she points and says the woman is right there. She points straight at an angel statue. Geon smirks. If you and I remember, that is the exact same statue that got broken earlier. Something about it felt suspicious from the start. He remembers hearing that she kissed it, realizing that was her coordinate marker magic. He recalls Gemini explaining the saint personally blessed the statues with a kiss. It all connects. Geon glares at the statue as the system announces his 13th sense is activating. This unique power lets him interfere directly with the spirit world. Suddenly, the statue starts screaming at him. Furious, she snaps, demanding why Lily Queen sold her out. This spirit is none other than Heiji, the Gemini saint. She floats out of the stone like a weeping ghost. It is Heiji in spirit form. She curses her luck for getting caught by him of all people. She cannot believe her life has spiraled like this. If only that fateful day had gone differently. It all started when the Devil's Tower collapsed. Heiji remembers that exact moment, the tower exploding, her dropping a cup, and wondering what that weird energy surge was all about. Then it hit her. Liam was still alive. That very day, Geon showed up at the apartment with Sanjay and Jiwoo. She was shocked he survived, but why did he come to Sanjay's place? Of all places, he came straight to his friend's son's apartment. Still, this worked perfectly since it was within her range. Curious about his plans, she decided to investigate herself. She used Gemini's teleportation skill. Since only her soul could travel, she possessed a nearby target, the angel statue in Sanjay's apartment, and that is exactly how she got trapped. The possession worked, but then Geon walked in, called it disgusting, and smashed it to pieces. Because her possessed target was destroyed during soul possession, escaping became completely impossible. Her possession skill was sealed, leaving her stuck inside the broken pieces. Then Io showed up, claiming it was still a useful relic, and they should try to fix it. Even a basic binding seal would hold her as long as someone glued the statue back together. And right on cue, Sanjay pulled out a bottle of glue. Back in the present, she insists Sanjay must fight Liam. Sanjay refuses, saying he will never fight his own uncle. She is completely baffled. Liam and their cult have always been bitter rivals. As a Gemini Templar, Sanjay is supposed to take him down, so Sanjay makes a bold choice. He is leaving the cult. This leaves her absolutely speechless. Sanjay explains that while he is part of Gemini, Uncle Liam is his ultimate hero. He rips off his guild badge and chucks it onto the floor. Heiji can only watch in absolute shock. The second it hits the ground, the entire room begins to violently tremble. Heiji panics, realizing it is divine punishment from a sacred goddess. Gemini unleashes her ultimate wrath directly upon Sanjay, and suddenly, ketchup starts pouring all over his body. Sanjay has absolutely no clue what is happening as everyone screams his name in a panic. Suddenly, he passes out and collapses to the floor. Heiji desperately begs him to beg for forgiveness. Since he is her chosen successor, the goddess might spare him if he agrees to eliminate Geon. She warns him that our main character is ruthless, but Sanjay shuts her down instantly. He yells back that the cult abandons innocent people the second it benefits them. Hearing them call Geon heartless makes him sick. He remembers back at the supermarket when they were told to run, wanted to leave everyone else behind to suffer. But Sanjay remembers Geon brutally beating a monster to save a child, and how he saved Sanjay and Yoha from a deadly beast. In his eyes, Geon is a true hero. The real hypocrites are the ones pretending to save the world while caring only about themselves. Let's see if Sanjay's faith pays off. Sanjay only had one thought as a kid, that Geon is his hero. So, they have no right to judge him. Right then, Freya, the sacred goddess of Gemini, finally reveals herself. She looms over Sanjay's unconscious body. The system warns that due to his bold declaration, the goddess's divine punishment has reached the absolute maximum level. She begins gathering immense power. She commands him to vanish along with his cursed hero. But right then, Geon calmly activates a skill. The goddess turns in complete shock as he raises his hand, gathering abyssal cut. Boom! Geon completely severs the link between the goddess and Sanjay. Meanwhile, absolute chaos erupts at Inyang Palace. Everyone is screaming to drag the victims out of the rubble and start spamming magic. Others are crying about the spreading fire, begging for water mages. But when they try to cast, they realize their mana is completely gone. Someone runs to Bishop Ken, yelling that things are going sideways. No one has a drop of magic left. Ken orders them to call the nearby Templars immediately, but everyone is just standing there, utterly dumbfounded. Absolute magic outage. Cut to the Gemini Templars fighting monsters. They are running for their lives because their goddess just pulled the plug on their powers. Back with our boy Geon, his work is done. The Gemini goddess is officially offline. Geon tells Sanjay he is safe now, admitting things got a little too close for comfort. He even thanks the kid for trusting his uncle. Sunji just stares, teary-eyed and totally touched, before smiling. But of course, the mood gets ruined. Someone in the back screams, "Lu, you absolute bastard. What did you do to me?" They turn around to see Saint Ray throwing a massive tantrum because her divine powers are gone. Now, let's look at how Geon pulled this off with his abyssal cut. The system breaks it down. He basically shredded the connection between Saint Ray and the goddess Fra. See, gods take massive risks and waste tons of energy when they try to meddle in the mortal world, so they use middlemen instead. The gods are the power plants, the saints act as the local substations, and the Templars are just the devices plugged into the wall. Cut the main line, and everything goes pitch black. So, no magic for anyone anymore. The connection is completely dead. Geon just stands there, giving her the smoochest grin imaginable. How does it feel being a total nobody, you purple witch? Honestly, this is the exact petty trick that Annoying Crab loved using. Severing connections with abyssal cut. That skill is a double S-rank cancer skill that can slice through literally anything. But when Geon combined it with his own power, things got crazy. Ray can only gape in absolute horror as he boasts he can now sever her contract with that trash goddess. This broken ability can slice memories, loyalty, bonds, you name it. The more he uses it, the more broken it gets. Ray refuses to believe it. No god would ever tolerate this. She screams that he is about to face divine wrath. Geon tells her to take her goddess and go straight to hell. Honestly, this just makes it easier to drag that idiot down to earth. He gives her a chilling, dark glare. Suddenly, a massive purple spark ignites, and lightning paints the sky. Citizens panic as a gigantic violet tornado of pure energy begins ripping the city apart. The system sounds the alarm. The Gemini goddess is absolutely furious about losing her connections. She is taking the gamble and stepping in personally. Geon and his allies watch it as the ground violently shakes. The purple storm starts tearing Sunungja's house to pieces while Yuri and the gang brace for impact. Geon just chuckles, calling it a pretty flashy entrance. The goddess manifests with insane pressure, but our main character is completely unbothered. It is Fra, the Gemini goddess. The system warns her energy is highly unstable, but she still gathers lightning in her palms, blasting it right at Geon. Right on cue, the system pulls an item from his inventory. The devastating blast surges forward, vaporizing everything in its path. But the goddess's jaw drops when the smoke clears, and Geon is completely fine. A fragment of the cancer core is absorbing all her divine energy. This is all thanks to the prize he swiped from the Cancer Saint during their last brawl. Fra is terrified to see a piece of another god. Geon just keeps soaking up her power, muttering that it is a shame. His favorite sword, Heaven's Condemnation. With that blade, he could slice actual gods. He opens up his crafting workshop instead, grabbing the Cancer Core fragment, the lightning, and the Gemini goddess's own whirlwind. Well, since he has no other options, this will have to do. He takes the Cancer Core and begins fusing the two energies. The system alerts that he just dealt critical damage to the Gemini goddess. She shrieks in agony as Geon stands tall, wielding his grim reapers. The proud goddess of Gemini is now suffering absolute humiliation. The crowd is speechless. How is a human hurting a literal deity? But then, the Abyss Storm Scythe breaks. Just one hit? Geon shrugs, saying that's the best he could do with a makeshift weapon. Meanwhile, the goddess keeps thrashing, discharging wild lightning, until the system warns that Fra has officially lost her mind. Suddenly, a massive direct hit lands. Who did that? Enter Hugo, looking cooler than he has any right to. Seeing him, Sanjay and Yuka shout in panic, "Dad!" But then, the Sagittarius god manifests right behind Hugo, commanding Fra to stop this invasion immediately. She freezes in shock. He warns her that going any further breaks the divine rules, telling her to back off now. Gods aren't allowed to descend to Earth with their true bodies. Right on cue, glowing golden chains materialize. The other gods are furious about her breaking the treaty and are activating restraints. Fra is visibly shaking as the massive power binds her. System warnings flash, stating that if she continues, she will have to pay an insane price in faith, stats, and attributes. She will also trigger maximum hostility with every other god. You and I can only watch this play out in awe. Hugo just clicks his tongue, muttering, "Well, that's a pity." Suddenly, multicolored chains bind Freya's body. Hugo points out that the other deities clearly aren't on her side, asking if she is really dumb enough to push her luck any further. Fraser lets out an ear-piercing shriek of rage. Meanwhile, the Sagittarius Saint stands firm. The entire area begins crumbling to dust, forcing Sanjay and the crew to cover their ears. Gritting her teeth, the Gemini goddess swears she will make them pay for this humiliation, pointing at Hugo and Geon. Geon can tell she's absolutely fuming, so he just flips her off. That sends her rage over the edge, but her body is already dissolving into pure light. The system announces that he has utterly shattered the Gemini goddess's pride, earning him massive renown among the divine entities watching Earth. He also rakes in a mountain of God Throne experience, instantly leveling up to beginner God Throne level 9. Once he hits level 10, he will trigger a special trial. With that done, the Sagittarius god begins to fade away. Hugo gives him a thumbs up as the system chimes again. A new special mission is unlocked, telling him to awaken the double S rank Ophiuchus core. With the crisis averted, everyone collapses in exhaustion. Geon approaches Hugo, laughing about his perfect timing. Honestly, our main character is still pissed about what Freysa did to Sanjay. An arrow to her skull was way too merciful. He promises that he's still going to beat that corrupt saint to a pulp. Hugo just smiles in relief, thanking him. He then reveals he managed to snag the item Geon wanted from the Inyong Palace. Geon perks up as Hugo pulls out a scroll. The system explains, it's a soul record, which lists all the contracts tied to Gemini's avatars. In the background, Yuka asks how he stole it, and Hugo brags that stealth is child's play for a top-tier archer. He also mentions the emblem Geon gave him. Hugo starts mumbling to himself while Geon quietly watches, and the system announces he had opened the soul record to inspect the avatar roster. There is the legendary Berserker, the one-eyed mad warrior, the legendary giant King Yotan, and the legendary warrior King Jarl, the light of the whitest god. The system states Gemini's avatars fully surrender to Ophiuchus. He can either adopt them as his own servants or hold them as prisoners. Geon definitely likes that option. Right after that, the system announces that the commander avatar trapped deep beneath the Yin-Yang Palace has also surrendered. Our main character figures this has to be that legendary mythical class commander. Still, he demands real proof before accepting their surrender. Just then, a mysterious purple vortex opens right above Geon, and a physical body that looks exactly like Ag begins to slide out of it. He is totally shocked, especially since Ag is still floating around as a ghost. As this physical body falls to the ground, everyone is completely baffled, including Ghost Ag herself. Then, the system chimes in. It turns out Gemini's avatars are offering Geon her actual physical body as a tribute. He cannot believe how ridiculous this situation is, but he accepts anyway. The system quickly confirms the surrender. With the avatars now transferred to his control, the system prompts him to name them, But our lazy main character decides to keep things simple, and let's be honest, you and I knew he would. Specifically, Bro 1, Bro 2, and Bro 3. The system locks in the names, leaving even the avatars completely speechless. Then, Geon grabs his female captive by the neck, reminding her that her goddess abandoned her and fled. He demands she answer his questions honestly, starting with whether she attacked him at the Devil Tower. When she claims she has no clue, our main character shoots a surge of dark power straight into her forehead, making her scream in pure agony. He calmly explains that this is a fragment of his Abyss Tempest scythe. Since it can literally burn away a soul, she really needs to stop playing dumb. She still tearfully insists she knows nothing. So he asks if she really wants to act tough while experiencing spiritual torture. While the others watch this terrifying power unfold, even the Spirit Queen cowers in fear. Hugo shields himself, starting to think she might actually be telling the truth. Desperate to stop the pain, she suddenly shrieks that it was probably Virgo, begging Geon to show some mercy. But the moment he hears the name Virgo, his face turns dark. Frustrated, he crushes the scythe fragment and tosses her aside, muttering that she could have saved herself a lot of pain by just speaking up sooner. Since her intel was actually useful, he decides to return her physical body. She is relieved to be alive, but her relief instantly turns to horror when the Spirit Queen suddenly swoops in and hijacks her new form, thanking him. She adds that while this was a bit unexpected, she really appreciates his kindness. Geon can only laugh awkwardly, realizing he might have made a pretty big mistake. See, he accidentally handed that body over to the Spirit Queen, who immediately glues herself to his arm. Yofa gets instantly jealous, forcing the others to hold her back. Later, we cut to Hugo's house where Yang, currently in a teddy bear body, mentions that trying to fix this mess is completely pointless. When asked what he means, Young explains that he can already spot countless dirty clauses and broken magical contracts at a single glance. The system identifies it as a rank.soul contract crafted by Virgo, a professional contract specialist. Now that Geon has seized everything Yang once owned, Yang says they are currently busy sorting out the details and asks for more soul records, planning to upgrade them all to rank SS. Yang just stares blankly at our main character, while Geon grins and tells Ray Mikan to go right ahead, making her absolutely thrilled. But then, something else catches Geon's attention. He looks over to find Ag trapped inside her statue, weeping while surrounded by several statues of himself. In her spirit form, she desperately begs him to break her out. Suddenly, a new skill notification pops up the snake contract. He can look past one or two things, but definitely not three. Geon just stares at this weird screen, wondering what kind of skill he just unlocked. Right then, his new avatars enthusiastically declare their loyalty to him. The system even points out how these guys are completely showering him with non-stop compliments, saying it is an honor to serve him. In no time, the room is filled with pure flattery. The avatars he acquired in the previous chapter show up too, looking at him in total awe, while Hugo admits he had never seen anything like this. Given how proud avatars normally are, this comment immediately triggers the avatars, who snap at Hugo, demanding to know how a mere servant dares to interrupt when they are speaking to Lord Geon. Hugo is left standing there looking totally defeated, but our main character makes it even worse by jokingly correcting them, saying Hugo isn't a servant, he is actually his slave. This makes the avatars even more outraged, asking how a lowly slave could ever dare to speak before the mighty Geon. The protagonist cuts the chatter and asks why they actually ditched Gemini for him. They quickly claim they could no longer tolerate the goddess's constant abuse. He looks completely unconvinced, forcing them to admit the real truth. They literally watched him beat her into the ground. Geon recalls the moment he utterly overpowered that goddess, while his new followers cheer in excitement. Now that they are being honest, he accepts their praise. They quickly explain that they are not alone. Even the commander and the remaining avatars want to surrender to him, though the commander is currently trapped deep in the ocean beneath the sacred domain. They also drop a massive bomb, revealing that humanity has already lost over half of its entire territory to the mysterious civilization of calamities. At first glance, the Saints and the Calamities seem pretty evenly matched, but the reality is far more grim. Humans cannot even dream of taking back their lost land. Geon ponders this, realizing that if the commander is stuck near the Yin-Yang Palace, then he must be in the outer ocean. That puts him right on the doorstep of the Calamity territory. Knowing this, our main character decides it is time to pay a little visit and scout things out for himself. The avatars bow deeply, swearing their absolute loyalty and lives to Geon. He accepts their pledge, looking forward to the challenge, while Yuka quietly notes that this is just typical behavior for her uncle. Even elite-tier avatars are completely terrified of him, which she finds both awesome and scary. But then, she casually mentions how glad she is that she asked to marry him. The second those words slip out, Jian and Hugo freeze solid. Hugo slowly turns around with a terrifyingly dark expression, demanding to know what she meant by that. Our main character can only sweat nervously and play dumb. But before things get crazy, a quick reminder: if you are enjoying this recap, make sure to drop a like, leave a comment, and subscribe for more epic content. Now, let us jump right back into the action. If you recall, the last episode ended with our main character casually chatting with his 3 new subordinates, completely unaware that Hugo is staring him down in the background. That is when Yuka randomly drops a massive bomb, saying she is glad she asked him to marry him. The exact second Hugo hears this, he approaches with a shadow over his face, leaving Geon frozen in terror. Hugo aggressively demands, "Hey, what on earth is she talking about? Marry you? What kind of nonsense is this?" To make matters worse, Yang chimes in from behind, joking that this basically makes Hugo his father-in-law. Furious, Hugo instantly shoots a flaming arrow straight at him, completely blowing apart his teddy bear head. As the poor guy runs off crying, Geon frantically begs Hugo to put his bow down so they can talk. But Hugo just snaps, shouting that his own daughter has never even told him she loves him, not even on Father's Day, so how dare she say something so sweet to another man. Right then, the system warns that the Saint of Sagittarius is fully enraged, launching a relentless storm of fire arrows at Jian. Jian quickly maneuvers to dodge every single shot, while Hugo screams that he is sorry, but our main character has to die today. Activating his invincibility skill, the legendary archer charges forward blindly. Our main character is still completely clueless as to why he is receiving this treatment. Using his God's Eye skill, he quickly scans the raging Saint of Sagittarius to analyze his raw magical power. Then, Jian calmly closes his eyes and starts catching the incoming arrows with his bare hands. But Hugo refuses to calm down, unleashing a massive, relentless rain of projectile fire straight at him over and over. Just as the arrows are about to pierce him, Jian casually blocks every single one. He sighs and tells him to stop being so incredibly annoying. A notification pops up, stating he humiliated the Saint. Fortunately, Hugo's hostility finally begins to cool down, granting Jian a massive amount of experience points. However, the angry dad is still fuming and rushes him again, activating his ultimate sovereign skill, Ring of the Sun God. He is truly going all out this time. Even Apollo, the god of Sagittarius, nervously asks if it is okay to wreck the house, especially since the mortgage is not even fully paid off yet. Hugo does not care about bills and keeps charging forward in a blind fury. Jian can only sweat, thinking to himself that this guy is exactly like someone he knows, totally willing to burn down his own home. Even when flat broke, Jian still acts the same. Hugo instantly flashes back to their chaotic first meeting, where Jian trashed his place too. Suddenly, Yoha screams out, "No, Dad!" Wait, what does she mean? No chance. She literally tells him he'd get destroyed by Uncle Jian. Talk about a brutal emotional roast from your own kid. Hugo is utterly devastated by the truth, standing there completely frozen. He finally lowers his bow, only for Jian to step right up and call him an absolute idiot. Whack! A solid smack to the head. Jian asks why he is throwing a tantrum over kids being kids. Like, does Jian look like a creep who would hit on his best friend's daughter? Hugo literally destroyed his own house for nothing. But hey, the kids actually appreciate him, even if they show it weirdly. They even bought him peace offerings. Right on cue, the kids return, carrying strawberry cake and his favorite coffee. Hugo's eyes immediately well up with tears at the sight of his precious treats. He lunges forward to snatch the cake, but Sunjae slickly dodges, sending Hugo flying past. Meanwhile, Jian is already stuffing his face with the cake. Hugo desperately scrambles to steal a bite back. But our overpowered main character keeps casually dodging, causing Hugo to wreck the rest of his living room. Later on, Yang gets his wounds stitched up again under Yoha's watchful eyes. Suddenly, her phone buzzes. She gasps in pure shock at the emergency alert on her screen. A red-level calamity, the Thousand Legs, has just spawned, triggering an immediate emergency mobilization order for every single Templar. Now, you and I are heading over to the coast of Manila in the Philippines, where violent lightning strikes the sea. Terrified soldiers on standby whisper about facing a red-class disaster. They try to hype themselves up, hoping their massive numbers will be enough. One commander yells to stay brave, claiming this crisis is an opportunity to prove they can win even without their saint. Suddenly, a figure crashes down from the clouds. It is the dramatic representative of the Leo Saint, shouting that this is their moment to shine and show the world their true, unstoppable power. The crowd goes wild, but Yoha just plugs her ears in absolute annoyance. She secretly wishes she could just go home and hang out with Uncle Jian. Plus, something feels deeply wrong here. Nearby, inside a quiet military tent, An old man watches the chaotic scene and scoffs. He calls them loud barbarians who are only using screaming and brute force to mask their inner terror. Shrugging it off, he wonders if his special little gift has reached its destination. Cut back to Hugo's completely demolished home. Someone knocks, and it turns out to be Hugo's stylish secretary, Yumi. He politely greets him, but then double takes at the absolute disaster zone. She screams, staring up at the missing ceiling. Meanwhile, Hugo is sulking in a dark corner, looking completely dead inside. He tells her not to ask, claiming it was a tactical destruction. She mentions that Yoha was deployed to the raid, then points out a weird box she found sitting right on his doorstep. Suddenly, a muffled voice screams from inside the cardboard package, demanding to know where the punk is. Meanwhile, back at Geon's forge, another rare material shatters as his system warns of low-tier tools. The legendary crafting attempt fails spectacularly yet again. The system reminds him he needs high-rank tools for elite weapons. Geon sighs, staring at the ruined pile of what was supposed to be a dagger. He curses his cheap hammer, missing his legendary tool that guaranteed perfect crafts. Sadly, he lost that cheat code hammer 20 years ago. Without it, crafting anything past mid-tier is a major headache. He needs to prep top-tier gear before his showdown with Virgo. Just then, an assassin hired by a rival Zodiac sneaks right into the sanctuary where Geon and Hugo are currently staying. A creepy voice starts speaking out of a weird goat head transmitter. The voice recognizes Hugo, who immediately complains about the sender's terrible taste. He calls the caller an annoying old goat. Hugo jokes that this tacky design feels like something Yang would build. Yang looks offended, wondering why he's catching stray insults. Geon walks over, casually tossing a small hammer in his hand. The voice recognizes Geon, introducing himself as Vladimir, the Saint of Capricorn. The nearby assistant looks confused, while Geon casually misremembers his name and calls him Sebastian instead. This old man is the legendary crafting saint. When Geon disappeared 20 years ago, this guy took over the market, making almost every famous weapon used by heroes today. Yep, he is that mustached old man we saw earlier. We get a quick montage of his high-tech armor and weapons, ending with that incredibly stupid-looking goat-head speaker. The old saint tries to explain his grand purpose for reaching out, but Geon just grabs the mechanical goat head, asking if he called to apologize for stealing his stuff. Without waiting for an answer, he tosses the speaker up and smashes it to bits. Hugo asks if they should really ignore him, but Geon just shrugs off the old man's nonsense. Geon suggests they just grab some popcorn and watch the raid broadcast instead. Meanwhile, the salty old saint grumbles about Geon's terrible attitude, waiting for his own grand entrance. Geon decides to tune in to the giant centipede raid. The broadcast officially introduces the powerhouse forces gathered at the shore, including elite combatants from the House of Leo. The fierce Vice Saint Yoha and Captain Oliver lead the charge. To back them up, the master illusionists and naval tacticians of the Pisces faction have also mobilized. The tanky shield users of Taurus form an unbreakable front line, while the legendary Aquarius Saint stands ready to deflect explosions with pure holy energy. Talk about a stacked lineup. To top it off, the Capricorn Saint has arrived to buff everyone's weapons to the max. It is a massive global joint operation, and the old man is ready to steal the spotlight. Seeing him on screen, Geon frowns, wondering what the old geezer is up to. The old saint raises his hands to the sky, summoning a very familiar-looking hammer. Yes, you and I know, that is Geon's stolen hammer that guarantees success. Hugo immediately points it out, completely stunned to see it in the old thief's hands. The old thief starts pounding away, using Geon's legendary hammer to boost their weapons before the fight. The crowd goes wild, praising his world-famous reinforcement skills. Geon is absolutely seething. The nearby assistant covers her ears as he rants about the dirty old goat using his stolen hammer to flex on live television. This is pure disrespect. He decides to put his plans with Virgo on hold, just to go beat up this old thief. As Geon charges out the door, the reporter on screen suddenly screams that the threat has arrived. A colossal shadow emerges from the deep ocean as a nightmare-inducing monster bursts through the waves. The sheer size of its gaping mouth freezes the entire army in absolute terror. It roars, confirming its status as a red-level threat. Commanders scream for everyone to get ready, but wait. There is something weird clinging to one of its massive tentacles. It is Steven. He is desperately hanging on to the monster, still clutching the broken divine bone from earlier. He screams at the giant beast to get its filthy hands off his precious bone. Yes, you and I are watching a man fight a literal calamity over a chew toy. He paid $1 billion for it, so he refuses to let go while his subordinates beg him to retreat. Meanwhile, the old Capricorn Saint barks at Oliver, demanding to know why the Leo forces are just standing there. The old geezer is clearly trying to hijack command of the entire battlefield. Oliver ignores the credit-stealing old man and prepares to launch his own strike. He orders his Leo troops to chug down their physical enhancement potions, and they immediately down their vials. At the same time, the Pisces mages cast underwater breathing and ocean buffs. The Aquarius healers rain down combat boosts, restoring health and maximizing everyone's speed and defensive stats. Taurus tanks lock down the rear, preventing the calamity from reaching the populated shores. Finally, the lead Leo fighter leaps forward with a massive battle cry, ready to clash. Alright, you and I are about to watch the ultimate beast mode activation. The lions charge forward at full speed, lightning exploding as they transform. The system alerts them that beast mode is active, granting the power of raging beasts. Tigers and panthers join the rush as the safari squad goes all out. Meanwhile, Aquarius keeps spamming blessing magic, stacking massive buffs on the front line. That is when Vice Captain Yua commands their sect unity skill, launching a giant energy lion. The glowing energy beast slams directly into the calamity. Right on cue, the transformed beast fighters swarm the giant octopus, biting and clawing from every possible direction. But then there is Steven, still dangling on a tentacle, screaming for everyone to shut up until he gets his precious bone back. He is literally arguing, mid-battle. Who on earth fights over a giant dog bone during an apocalypse? His team is screaming at him to let go, but he is stubborn. If this keeps up, they are toast. Is Yua seriously going to save him? She knows changing the plan for a literal bonehead is a terrible idea, but she cannot just watch him die. Red lightning begins crackling. Her team offers to throw some support buffs her way, but she totally rejects them with a cold stare. Instead, she triggers her acceleration skill and rockets straight forward. She aims directly for Steven and his dumb bone. With a single, swift slash, she severs the giant tentacle. Talk about a clean rescue. Steven falls splashing into the water. He sits there coughing up seawater, still hugging his bone. But Yua is not having it. She steps right on his head, dunking him back under. The crowd is absolutely stunned. He jumped that crazy distance and sliced a boss monster's arm off like it was nothing. Even as Taurus complains about her standing on his head, morale absolutely skyrockets. They launch a massive barrage of magic, physical strikes, and energy beams. But the giant beast suddenly stops moving, raising a wall of water that is absolutely terrifying. A giant tsunami is heading straight for them. The Templars immediately form their defensive walls to block the impact. But then, the monstrous calamity charges right through, sparking instant panic. The front line begins to break. The shady old man mutters that he has to use his last resort. But suddenly, a mysterious voice right behind him asks what he is holding. Turns out, it is a detonator to blow up the entire coast. Before the old man can react, Geon slaps it away. Right then, our favorite giant slime lunges forward. With one big gulp, it swallows the corrupt old-timer whole. Geon sighs, calling him a total pain. Seriously, trying to blow up the vanguard just to hit the boss is extreme. He tells the old man to stay put in there. It is time to show this giant octopus how real warriors make seafood sashimi. And with that, the camera shifts to the shore. We see Jin Yuri sprinting across the water like a ninja. She remembers the guide for this battle, which says you must outrun the tentacles and slice down any you cannot dodge. She glides past the incoming attacks effortlessly. Just like Jian during his own raid, flashbacks of the legendary hero from 20 years ago start flashing through her mind as she charges forward. Back then, she fought alongside him, slicing through the danger with absolute ferocity. She is so incredibly skilled that even Hugo would not stand a single chance against her in a fight. Stopping for a split second, she remembers the ultimate strategy, aiming straight for the eyes once she gets close enough. Gripping her spear tightly, she targets the massive creature's eyeball. Red lightning surges through her weapon as she triggers her ultimate skill, Lotus Flash. But to her utter shock, the gigantic monster blocks her full power strike with just a single tentacle. How could it block that so effortlessly? The calamity glares at her and retaliates, launching a whip attack directly at her. Luckily, Steven jumps in and pulls her out of harm's way. Everyone watches the soldiers getting wrecked. But you and I know what she is thinking. What would our main character, Jian, do in this crazy crisis? Suddenly, a shadow streaks past her with a blade. Our main character is finally making his move. The beast roars in anger, but Jian draws his sword to unleash a legendary storm. He activates his Great Mountain Eruption skill, literally carving a massive hole right through the monster. He casually mutters if he went a bit too hard, leaving everyone staring in utter disbelief. They are completely speechless, wondering how Jian even got here. He just shrugs, claiming he wanted to show them how it is done because they were struggling way too much with this weakling. The crew yells at him for stealing the spotlight at the very end. But before they can keep arguing, a massive tentacle wraps around Jian. The monster swings him toward its gaping mouth. It is about to swallow him whole. Hugo screams out in absolute terror while the rest of the squad panics, realizing they might not have anyone strong enough to save the main character. To make matters worse, swarms of smaller creatures start screeching below. But right when things look completely hopeless, Geon decides it is time to stop playing around. He summons his spear, which tears through the earth and flies straight into his grip. The moment he holds it, a terrifying wave of pressure erupts, making the giant monster instantly flinch. Surrounding energy turns wild and chaotic. He casually spins the spear above his head, activating his blade baptism skill. With one epic swing, he completely shreds the giant beast into pieces. The battlefield falls completely silent as everyone stares at the absolute destruction. Geon stands there casually, joking that he loves giant enemies because there is simply so much more surface to slice. At the end of the day, 1,000 arms just means more takoyaki. With the creature split wide open, Geon leaves the cleanup to the rest of the squad, completely relaxed. And just like that, history is made. You and I are witnessing a legendary victory. The returned hero slays the calamity, even if the rumors get a bit messy. The entire army bursts into cheers. When your achievements are this mind-blowing, people cannot help but treat you like a god. Suddenly, a mysterious glowing book appears in midair. The system announces that a holy book of his deeds has been officially created. Even the powerful constellation masters are left speechless by this absolute flex. A literal sacred scripture. Now that is what I call a power move. From the sidelines, Yuka waves happily at Geon. Thank goodness Hugo is not here to ruin the celebratory mood with his usual nagging. A teammate rushes over to check if she is all right, and she nods happily. But then, Geon notices something incredibly bizarre. Why on earth is there a massive object strapped to her back? Hugo panics, trying to play it cool and act like she is carrying absolutely nothing. Geon raises an eyebrow, wondering if hoarding giant bones is some kind of weird Leo faction trait. She quickly claims she only kept it as a souvenir. Moving on, Geon hands her the shattered remains of her spear, admitting he went a little too wild and accidentally snapped it. But he promises to craft her an even better weapon soon. She instantly lights up with excitement. A custom weapon made by him is the ultimate prize. Just then, Steven invites himself in. Everyone freezes as Yua glares at him, asking why he is screaming like a lunatic. But Steven is completely unbothered, claiming he has every right to celebrate this amazing development. Since she is under his faction, he expects Geon to make him a custom weapon as well. Geon is already losing his patience as Steven continues to shamelessly beg for free gear. Just as Geon is about to throw hands, a massive explosion of energy erupts right behind him, revealing a colossal, glowing goat. Steven panics, asking if he is seeing things. Wait, can you make explosions with your voice now? Is there no limit to your power? He just snaps back. Idiot, that wasn't me. Suddenly, a thick yellow mist floods the battlefield, and total panic instantly breaks out. People scream for help as their bodies warp and mutate. What on earth is going on? They are turning into savage beasts with glowing green eyes. Someone yells, "What happened to you?" But one monster lunges and bites a nearby soldier. Absolutely nobody knows why this is happening. The Leo forces completely lose control, and his own squad suddenly starts attacking Taurus's people. Everyone wants to know what caused that blast. The old goat acts like it's totally obvious he planted a radiant flash marmot bomb, though he grumbles that the explosion was too weak. They look over and see that rotten old goat in heavy robotic armor. Smirking, he brags that the blast was just a little greeting before the main event. And he says all this while holding Lime captive in his hand. Geon immediately demands to know what he did to her. Meanwhile, Steven is totally lost, asking what a marmot is and if he actually planted a bomb there, where Steven's men were currently fighting. The old man tells him to shut it. He is not surprised that every Leo soldier caught in the blast went wild. So, this was your doing all along? The old goat laughs, praising Geon for catching on so quickly. Then, he decides to show them a real trick. He blows a whistle, sending a massive, heavy sound wave rippling through the area. Instantly, the mutated Leo soldiers react to the signal, swarming toward Geon and our main character. They grab Yua and our hero, pinning them flat to the dirt. The old man just laughs, mocking Geon for thinking he could handle all those massive disasters without running completely out of juice. Checkmate. Hero. The beasts keep him and Yua pinned down while Steven glares in pure rage. The goat gloats about how satisfying it is to see Geon eating dirt, admitting he never expected winning to feel this amazing. Steven curses him out, demanding to know what happened to his own men. Why are they ignoring his orders? The old man explains that Steven, our protagonist, and Yubi are fine because they never drank his potion. That drink he distributed earlier? It was a mind-controlled drug. The potion Steven's men drank is reacting directly to his masterpiece. Right now, those soldiers are mindless puppets, and they will only follow commands played through his custom flute. Steven roars at him to fix them this instant. But the goat tells him to relax. If he wants his men back, he has to listen to a little deal first. Then, he tosses Geon's sword, right at Steven's feet. Steven stares at it. Isn't this our hero's weapon? The old man nods, confirming Geon forged it himself. Now, he makes Steven an offer he absolutely cannot refuse. Kill Geon. Steven asks why he is so obsessed with killing our main character, and why he should even listen. The old goat insists there is no choice. Doesn't he want his squad back? Besides, he already knows the massive gap between his strength and the hero's. The old man feels the exact same gap in forging skills. The harder they try, the more they realize how unbreakable that wall is, an impossible barrier. But he calls this Steven's ultimate golden ticket. If they team up, he promises to forge the most overpowered weapon ever made, customized entirely for Steven's style. Together, they can easily crush Geon. After that, it is only a matter of time before Steven climbs to the absolute top of the 12 cardinals. So, grab the sword and end him. Steven pulls the blade from the dirt. Yua screams at him to stop, warning him that this is clearly a setup and the old man is a liar. But Steven just keeps staring quietly at Geon. He warns him that if he hurts our guy, she will make him pay. Steven slowly walks up to him. The old man keeps urging him on, whispering about the ultimate weapon. But then, Steven turns and snaps. I don't need your trashy, underhanded tricks to beat Geon. Unlike a loser like you, I don't rely on cheap schemes to reach the top. He literally flips the old goat off. Everyone is stunned. The old man starts yelling, but Steven cuts him off, claiming he has already surpassed Geon. All he needs now is a proper weapon. So don't compare me to garbage like you. Then, he drops a massive truth bomb. How can someone who couldn't even beat Geon build a weapon worthy of Steven? Honestly, Steven is straight up roasting this old fool into oblivion. The old man hesitates, but Steven suddenly lunges forward, smashing right through his high-tech armor and leaving him totally stunned. The goat screams at him not to get arrogant, and fires a wild barrage of homing missiles, triggering an absolute inferno. He brags that even the mighty Leo is trash before his genius. But then, Steven literally transforms into a massive lion, charging straight through the flames. Steven admits that 20 years ago, he really did have a massive inferiority complex, but he got over that garbage ages ago. Now, he only wants one thing, to surpass Geon's legendary skills. Thunderclaws. He shreds the old man at absolute blinding speed, tearing the robotic armor to pieces. But Steven isn't done yet, mocking Capricorn for making such basic, fragile gear. He rips the massive chest plate off and tosses it aside. I fought a disaster barehanded, so stop hiding behind your cheap toys. The old man is left trembling in fear. But then, Geon suddenly chimes in. Hey, are you two finished playing around? Steven freezes. Wait, how is he already free? Our hero casually explains that he only let them capture him to hear the villain's evil monologue, but their bickering got way too annoying. Besides, those cheap monsters were far too weak to actually hold him down. The old goat and Yua are left utterly speechless, staring in disbelief. How is this monster of a man even real? Geon couldn't care less. He tells the goat to scram and casually kicks Steven away. We flash back to a few moments ago, when the beasts were still holding him down. While Steven and the old man were screaming at each other, Geon was already dying of sheer boredom. Literally just stood up, leaving the monsters holding him completely bewildered. With a tired, bored expression, Geon asks, So when are you clowns gonna finish? And boom, he's right beside them. Back to the present. The old man explains that 20 years ago, right before the Devil Tower incident, someone with a sinister smile declared that our protagonist would definitely die there. Geon's eyes narrow. That sounds exactly like the prophecy Hugo got from his saint. But the old man shakes his head. That wasn't just some prediction of the future, it was an active assassination plot. The old goat grins creepily, gearing up for a massive villain backstory. But our guy completely loses his patience. He cuts him off, snapping that he doesn't care about some annoying flashback. He wants names, not a history lesson. Terrified, the goat quickly folds. He promises to talk, but only if Geon guarantees his safety. Geon immediately grabs him by the collar, showing zero mercy. He reminds the old fool that he is in no position to negotiate, waste his time, and he'll personally rip his tongue right out of his head. Terrified, the goat instantly blurts it out. Virgo. It was Virgo all along. This fits perfectly with what the Purple Witch hinted at earlier. When he cornered the genius saint, she also pointed toward Virgo. So that snake is the mastermind. Geon decides he needs to meet up with Meng to get the results of the dagger analysis. He'll let this slide for a minute. But first, it's time to hand over the goods. The hammer of guaranteed achievements belongs to our main character now. The old man is horrified that he is taking his prized possession, but quickly surrenders the relic anyway. Geon holds the legendary hammer, totally satisfied. Meanwhile, the Saint of Capricorn is practically shaking with pure rage and regret. Our hero just smirks at his miserable face, then calls out, "Three brothers, show yourselves." They appear instantly. Jian orders them to drag this trash back to their dimension, noting they can break a few bones as long as he stays breathing. The old goat is utterly horrified, realizing Jian has powerful avatars. Wait, you didn't just become a saint, you became the god of an entire new constellation. The poor guy begins, with the threat dragged off. It is time for some serious reflection because forgiveness is definitely not on the table. Meanwhile, the Leo group finally groggily wakes up, bringing a massive wave of relief to everyone. While some hope the nightmare is over, the Capricorn squad is absolutely losing their minds. Their saint is gone, leaving them with a brutal choice: win this battle or die trying. Time for a desperate backup plan. They attempt to channel power through their armor, triggering total chaos. Too bad they completely forgot our saint already sabotaged all of their gear. Still, they scream that they are taking everyone down with them. They vow to blow everyone straight to hell. But honestly, that is a terrible idea. Suddenly, a massive torpedo is launched right at our main character. As it hurtles closer, he just casually looks at it. He wonders what kind of cheap toy this marmot thing even is. But with his overpowered hammer of guaranteed victory relic, he can easily upgrade or transform any target that fits the rules. After selecting the incoming torpedo as his target, our hero swings his mighty hammer, smashing the weapon head-on. Instantly, a massive storm of crackling lightning erupts across the sky. Modification complete. The deadly bomb is instantly transformed into a harmless, flashy light show. Just like that, their ultimate weapon becomes actual fireworks, leaving the enemy completely stunned and incredibly frustrated. But suddenly, a giant paw slams onto the dirt. The beast folk have returned, furious about being used and discarded. Turns out these demi-humans are incredibly tough and nearly impossible to put down. They mock the enemy, noting that harmless fireworks cannot even scratch them. Terrified of the beast folk, the enemy leader panics and bolts. Meanwhile, Steven is absolutely fuming at their escape attempt. He demands a massive, heavy weapon to throw at the cowards. Jian just chuckles and offers to create a custom weapon instead. He slowly turns to Steven with a devious grin. Jian realizes he already has the perfect throwing weapon right in front of him. Steven gets an incredibly bad feeling about this, and a split second later, he is sent soaring through the air. Jian launches him like a rocket straight at the fleeing enemies, scoring a perfect strike as everyone scatters. He casually remarks that he should probably take up professional bowling after this. He drops the unconscious Steven onto the ground, but cannot stop staring at the bizarre item stuck to his foot. Finally, he steps back in disgust, refusing to touch whatever weird thing that is.